Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another round of the NXTCC, or known in full as the Next Gen Racing Touring Car Championship Season 2, as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC, known as iRacing. And today marks round 4 of 8 as our drivers make their way in towards the Christmas break, for we aim to conclude the first half of the season today, with a week's break just around the corner to celebrate the winter festivities, Christmas Day and all that, and who will be able to take the trimmings with them as they make the way into the break with the ultimate prize, which is 3 strong performances over our 3 races tonight. Well, we're going to find out all that and more in short order, and what a brilliant circuit for us to wrap up the first half of the season. It is none other than the Austrian circuit of the Red Bull Ring Grand Prix circuit, and it's length spanning at 4.28 kilometres with 9 corners, or 10, depending on which side of the table you sit on and how controversial you want to be. It is going to be a circuit which is going to be straightforward in terms of the battling, but also the opportunities presented to drivers. It's going to be all in, all holds barred action all the way through to the conclusion. And our schedule for tonight is as follows: times in Greenwich Mean Time, that's GMT, or Universal Coordinated Time, UTC. In just under 90 minutes time, we'll be heading into our qualifying session, 20 minutes in duration, with all of our drivers out of the circuit, and with a field of drivers spanning in excess of 30 drivers currently in attendance. You can imagine it's going to be a very crowded circuit despite the straightaways. Then after that, we'll be making our way straight into our first race of the day, sprint race number 1, all of our races being 14 laps in duration, and there we'll see our drivers take to the circuit in anger, battling from start to finish with that standing start, and who will come away with the prizes come the end of that one. Well, after race number 1, we'll be taking a brief breather before returning at approximately 25 past 9 this evening for the build up to race number 2, another 14 lap thriller, and then we'll be taking another breather after that before getting ready to go racing for the third and final time this evening, and that'll be at approximately 5 past 10 in sprint race number 3. And in the commentary booth, you have myself, as always. My name is Paul Walsh, also known as TX141 or Brit to the Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And this broadcast is being brought to you live via 3 media platforms for your viewing pleasure. Firstly, if you are so YouTube inclined, you can go to youtube.com and search for Next Gen Racing and tune in there. Second, if you're Facebook inclined, you can go to facebook.com/groups/Next Gen Racing and tune in on Facebook. Or last but not least, if you are a Twitch user, you can always go to twitch.tv/TX141 and tune in there. And of course, we can see all 3 chats together, so do not be shy. Feel free to say hi if you do want to pop a little something in the chat, and we can always interact with you as the racing goes on. Although, of course, all of our eyes are going to be on the race, and I'm sure yours are as well, as we say hello there in the Facebook chat to Katie Eames. I hope you're doing well, Katie. But as we get ready to go racing, then let's take a look at our season so far and what lies in wait as we continue to make our way deeper and deeper into the calendar. And what we can see here, that as we get towards the end of the first half of the schedule, last time out on the 13th of December, we were racing in Belgium at Circuit Zolder, with the emphasis so far being on the European continent for our opening 4 rounds, and then we go a bit further international after the Christmas break. But at Circuit Zolder last week, it was all in, all out with regards to the alternate layout of the circuit, with the Zolder's 3 chicanes really differentiating the best from the rest, and we saw Mikey Doble back on top form in the Pro class, and we saw the rise of Daniel Holmer, our triple winner in the Pro class, really carrying on from where Reece Watt picked up the triplet of wins at Catalonia. And of course, Catalonia round number 2 was back on the 6th of December, and there in Spain, it was the name of the game to deliver as much pain as possible to their rivals in terms of getting those brilliant performances. And at a circuit where we saw the overtaking opportunities come by the dozen at the Spanish national layout, we saw the Circuit of Barcelona Catalonia generate some fantastic racing, and indeed with it being a staple of the TCR Europe calendar, well, Barcelona Catalonia did not disappoint. And of course, what did not disappoint as well was back in round number 1, all the way back on the 29th of November. Goodness me, it has almost been a month already, and that was at Donington Park in the United Kingdom. We're there at the Grand Prix layout of the circuit. We've got everything underway, and indeed the pace was set by a multitude of drivers, whether it be Mikey Doble and also his colleagues at the very top of the Pro class, including Chris Daines, also Adam Delmont and Will Redford. Alternatively, in the Pro class, where we saw the rise of Michael Leeson, also was Martin Shirley, who both got promoted to Pro as a result. But after today, after the 20th of December at the Red Bull Ring, we're taking our break week, and then we'll return in the early portion of 2023 on the 3rd of January with the Twin Ring Motegi circuit. We're making our way over to Japan to a circuit that's lesser known on the global stage, but I could assure you the Twin Ring Motegi circuit, or the Honda test track, is one that is going to be absolutely fantastic for touring car racing, and more on that in 2 weeks' time. After that, we're making our way over to the United States of America via the Pacific Ocean for the Watkins Glen International Circuit, and there at the affectionately known Glen on the 10th of January, we're bound to see plenty of brilliant battling, and also it's going to be perhaps the ultimate high-speed challenge. Before in the penultimate round, we make our way back to Germany in Europe for the Motorsport Arena Oschersleben on the 17th of January there at the circuit, which is infamously named, well, not infamously named per se, but some of the corners, or particularly the opening corner, does have a bit of an archetype to it, thanks to BTCC legend John Cleland. And then in the season finale in Brazil, we'll be heading to Interlagos on the 24th of January at a circuit. It is no less of a circuit in terms of a natural racing circuit, but it is perhaps the ultimate championship design circuit, with it being the ultimate design circuit in Formula 1 calendars of lesser years and years gone by. And where you can imagine on the 24th of January, all of our drivers will be striving to get the utmost in terms of their final point scores to end their championship campaign on the ultimate achievement, which is that championship win or as close as possible to it. But still plenty of racing to come, and indeed plenty of racing gone so far, and it is a lovely way to continue our way in towards Christmas with plenty of NXTCC action at our fingertips. Well, as we then come onto our championship campaigns, then we look to the overall championship standings so far. In the Drivers' Championship overall, we can see that Mikey Doble leads the way on 206 points, ahead of Adam Delmont there by the best part of 52 points, and Adam Delmont jumping ahead of Will Redford for the first time this season, with Will Redford having a difficult day at Zolder, really cost him dear, and dropping into P3. Chris Daines then leads the rest of the pack in P4, there being a sizable gap of 36 points between P3 and P4, with Jamie Doria and Kieran Sharp completing the run behind Chris Daines to P6, and then Martin Shirley P7 holding his own versus Adam McNally and trying to hunt down Kieran Sharp, with Sam Smith P9 and Wayne Douglas on 48 points completing the top 10, only 2 clear of Andrew Pike. Then we can see in P12 the first of our primes, and that is Daniel Homer, boosted up into P12 given his runner results at Zolder last time out, and on 45 points, 1 point clear of both Gavin Garner and Michael Lees, who Gavin Garner being ahead of Michael Lees based on result countback. Nick Clibbins in P15 there, and we got to see Nick Clibbins have a better series of races last time out after perhaps being the unluckiest driver in rounds 1 and 2, where he was involved in a multitude of incidents in the opening laps of all 3 sprint races in rounds 1 and 2 that were not his fault, and Nick Clibbins finally being given the opportunity to flex his muscle and demonstrate just how much pace is behind the iRacing esports driver. Gianni Peroni there in P16, unfortunate last time out at Zolder to have 3 difficult races in the Elantra, and we look forward to seeing how he can turn things around tonight, with Reece Watt, Matthew Addy, John Higgins Jr. and Alan McCain completing the top 20, and then outside the top 20 in the overall standings, we can see P21 Isaac Doble, the one to watch in the Prime class, who's building pace, with fellow family member Joseph Doble not too far behind by a single point, and then Ian Manners and Lee Horn behind them, both on 5 points there. Manners ahead of Horn based on result countback. We then have Sebastian Bruberg, Nigel Stott, Bram G. Clays, John Higgins Sr., Luke Jones and Jotham Collins completing the top 30, with Mark Sykes there in P31 ahead of Paul Scott based on result countback, and then Matt Emmons, the final drivers, have a single point to his name in P33, and yet to score points in the overall Drivers' Championship, Bobby Thompson, Daniel Weston, Davide Farver, Elwin Sykes, Jason Morris, Josh Brown, Liam Silkstone, and then outside the top 40 there, Philip Bruberg, Rob McGregor, Shane Abbott, Sean Scudder, Stefan Vessels, Thomas Delaney, and Trev Anderson. But now as we come on to the individual class championships, we start off with the pros. And we can see here the complexion, when you only take the pro scores into account, indeed, you begin to focus purely on this class, is that Mikey Doble's advantage slightly larger than previously mentioned, where the advantage stands at 57 points over teammate from NDA Honda Racing, Will Redford. Adam Delmont falls back to P3, but that goes to show you how Adam Delmont has had the better runner results in the overall standings, whereas Will Redford's had the better runner results slightly in the pro focus standings. And those two, therefore, practically inseparable at the moment. And you would imagine that Mikey Doble here has a major opportunity tonight to be able to break away and really put a hand on that championship crown early on in terms of breaking the field open and then leaving everybody to fight over P2. However, Will Redford and Adam Delmont are going to have something to say about that, as is Chris Daines there in P4 on 123 points, and do not count out the Verano Motorsport driver. He has shown over the last couple of rounds, and really since the start of the season, but particularly at Zolder last time out, that he has got an absolute storm of pace growing, and he just needs the opportunity to be able to fully deploy it. And when he gets that opportunity, we could be seeing a first win of the series from Chris Daines. Jamie Dory there in P5 on 96 points, ahead of Kieran Sharp by the best part of what is there 28 points, and Jamie Dory falling a little bit behind the top 4, but trying to stay in touch with Kieran Sharp there, then leading the run from P6 through to P10, ahead of Sam Smith, Michael Lees, Gavin Gardner, Adam McNally. Best of the rest there in P11, Martin Shirley having a difficult run of form over the last 2 rounds since his promotion, but he's got a lot of pace under his fingertips. And he'll be looking to try and break back into the top 10 tonight, only 7 points off of Adam McNally and ahead of Wayne Douglas based on result countback. Nick Clemens in P13, they're now on 52 points, moving further up the order and looking to continue that momentum tonight, with Andrew Pike there in P14 ahead of Gianni Perrone and John Higgins Jr. and Bobby Thompson completing the pro standings as we then come on to the Pro-Ams. And we can see in terms of the Pro-Ams, the complexion here is rather different compared to the Pros. Whereas in the Pros, we have a runaway leader who's trying to run away even further. In the Pro-Ams, it's about Mr. Consistent versus the Fast Chargers. Mr. Consistent at the very top there, Matthew Addy, yet to pick up a win in class, but continuing to pick up podiums and top fives on 141 points. And again, it was the story at Zolder about the Veloster driver just keeping it smart and keeping it simple, whereas Daniel Holmer stole all the headlines with 3 wins out of 3, moving up to 137 points and picking up 4 bonus points as well. And then Reece Watt, unlike his performance in Spain, where he was able to pick up the triplet of wins, not having the luck on his side and also not quite on the pace of Daniel Holmer, but you can imagine for Reece Watt, it was all about trying to pick up some damage recovery, and he did so very well, and on 136 points, only 1 point off of Daniel Holmer. Then we have Alan McCain in P4, leading the rest of the pack by a margin of 20 points out with Joseph Doble. And keep your eyes on Alan McCain. He showed a lot of promise last time out, and I get the feeling that Alan McCain could really be a danger for anybody looking to finish inside the top 3 tonight in the Pro-Am class. And when I say danger, in a good way in terms of he's pushing for those podium places as well. Joseph Doble showing great pace as well at Zolder, another major contender on the rise, with Ian Manners a further 20 points behind in P6, ahead of Philip Bruberg and Lee Horn. Lee Horn having a difficult run at Zolder last time out, but trying to keep those results consistent, ahead of Mark Sykes and Isaac Doble, who complete the top 10. Then Luke Jones best arrested in P11 on 55 points, 1 clear of Jonathan Collins, and then Jason Morris in P13. Then Jason Morris, the iRacing Esports driver, finally having the opportunity to showcase some of the pace under the hood of the car and being given the chance not to be involved in incidents, and with that he's moved up to 46 points in that P13 position, only ahead of Matt Emmons based on result countback, but the Verano Motorsport driver as well, showing a great run of form in Belgium, and we look forward to seeing how he gets on tonight. With John Higgins Sr. not in attendance the last time out, indeed for the last 2 rounds not in attendance, and we'll have to wait to see how John Higgins Sr. is able to get on at the Red Bull Ring. Of course, not one of his favourite circuits, as we heard from him following the season opener. And then Trevor Anderson in P16, Nigel Stott P17, Full Scott P18, Elwin Sykes P19, and Sebastian Brewer completing the run to P20. Then outside the top 20, not to be forgotten about, Liam Silkstone ahead of Daniel Weston, where Daniel Weston started to pick up some points the last time out, and Davide Favo P23 there on 9 points, ahead of fellow CSS racing driver Sean Scudder, and then Bram G. Clays, Thomas Delaney, Josh Brown, and Rob McGregor completing the Pro-Am standings. We then come on to the Teams Championship standings, and we can see here the complexion of the Teams Championship is we have a runaway leader, and then the rest of the field is coming hot on their heels with the NDA Honda racing outfit of Dory, Doble, and Redford, and that is Mikey Doble and Joseph Doble leading the way on 367 points. And they are the best part of 140 points clear of Excite Racing. And Excite Racing jumping up into that P2 spot and looking to hold off the charge of Verano Motorsport there, when then there been a sizable gap of what is 69 points to the Sim Racing collective of Andrew Pike and Kieran Sharp in P4. Keep in mind the pair there making up the team and really delivering the goods in the hunt for P4 ahead of iRacing Esports, who on 99 points find themselves in the hunt for that P4 position, and then NXTGEN Racing Yellow outside the top 5 on 74 points, needing to fend off the charge of Simtech Racing's Shirley and Glaze, with Bright Esports, HSR and JW Motorsport completing the top 10. And then looking outside the top 10, we have NXTGEN Racing Blue, head of 52 at Zilla with Crest Racing, and CSA Racer, I should say. I keep saying CSS, I apologise for that. CSA Racing there completing the standings, yet to score a point in the Team Championship. Could it be their opportunity to do so tonight? Now, as for the Manufacturers' Championship and how the success ballast will be applied to the cars tonight, we can see that Honda still being the runaway manufacturer with the Civic Type R and continue to have that 75 kilograms of success ballast being applied to every single Honda Civic Type R on the grid, given they have a 636 points versus Hyundai Velosters at 216. They'll be taking the 50 kilograms, only 15 points clear of the Hyundai Elantra, who take 25 kilograms, and then the Audi RS3, which has not been the popular car or the fastest car so far, taking no success ballast on only 47 points. But you can imagine that Audi will come through, particularly later in the season when we do go to some of the faster paced circuits. That's the standings all covered. Now let's go on to our circuit for today, and it is none other than the Red Bull Ring Grand Prix circuit. Located in Spielberg in the Styrian region of Austria, this circuit on paper looks rather simplistic based on the circuit map provided to us by simracingwiki.com. Thank you to them as always for their brilliant circuit maps, and indeed it is a simple circuit consisting of 9 corners that are all low to medium speed in nature, with the opening 3 corners being hairpin style corners, the slowest speed speed corners on the circuit and separated by extended straights. What this means is it's going to be the battle of slipstream and the brakes into each corner, and it's all about being as brave as possible. For as our drivers make the way across the start-finish line and up into the braking zone for Niki Lauda corner at turn number 1, they'll come through the right-hander and up the hill they'll go towards turn number 2 at Remus corner. You notice a small kink there in the straight. Some will classify that as a corner, but we're not going to for the purposes of this evaluation. And as our drivers make the way up the hill towards Remus at turn number 2, they'll brake as late as possible in the uphill braking zone to go into the sliced corner on the circuit. And as they exit out through the right-angled right-hander, they'll make their way gradually downhill towards Gisser corner at turn number 3. There, at downhill braking zone, they'll look to brake a little bit earlier compared to Remus and look to get the apex nice and late as they power their way out and through the right-hander of 4, flat out through 4 and into Power Horse corner at turn number 5. A downhill left-hander, which is all medium speed from this point onwards, and as they come through the downhill left-hander, they have to watch out for understeer as they head into turn number 6, another downhill braking zone where they trail off the brake and head through the kink of 6 and 7 before making their way out towards Jochenrink corner at turn number 8, the fast right-hander, which is downhill under braking, a lot of trail braking needed there, and then they'll come down to the braking zone for turn 9, the A1 ring corners. The circuit used to be known as the A1 ring at one point in time, and as they exit the final corner, they'll have to do it all again. Now, as we come to the race rules and regulations here, let's give you a quick recap of those before we get underway with the racing. In terms of setup, this is a fixed setup series, so our drivers are all running the iRacing baseline setup that's available to them. The only thing they're allowed to tweak on the car is the brake bias, and of course, some cars will have that success ballast applied to them. And in terms of driver classes have been finalised as of round 3, so that's why that's in red. It means that we are not expecting any drivers to be moved class from this point onwards. We may have an exception if we have any privateers arrive on the scene, any newcomers, and we do have a newcomer in attendance tonight, and we will introduce them very shortly, but otherwise driver classes have now been finalised and we are not expecting them to change at any point for the remainder of the season. In terms of the sprint races, the race 1 grid of course will be set based on the results of qualifying, with the race 2 grid being set based on the results of race number 1. In terms of if you win race number 1, you'll start on pole for race number 2, and then we work the order downwards from there. And the race 3 grid shall be a reverse grid based on the results of race 2, with a reversal position being drawn live from between P6 and P12. But of course we can't select P6 today because P6 was drawn from the Lottery Bowl last time out at Zolder, so it'll be P7 through to P12. That will be the potential candidates, and our drivers will need to watch out for that. And we're cutting over to the commentary booth for me to do the live draw. What it means is whatever number we choose, that's going to be what pole position will be. So if we pull 10 out of the hat, it will mean that P10's finisher in race number 2 will start on pole. Conversely, the winner of race number 2 will start in 10th place, and the driver who finished 11th in race number 2, well, you guessed it, they'll be starting at 11th, and we work our way downwards from there. Each driver shall have 2 fast repairs available in each race, and each race shall conclude after the allotted lap amount, which will be 14 laps today, or 30 minutes of racing time if we do have safety cars. Now, with regards to the safety cars, there is a race steward operating, an independent race director who is stewarding the races for track limit infringements, and they're going to be focusing in particular on turns 7, 8 and 9, given those are certainly corners which can be cut quite severely or run wide on to carry extra speed, and they'll also be looking at the deployment of the safety car if we have any major bumps and scrapes, and indeed we saw a very nasty one in race number 3 at Zolder which brought out the safety car. Penalties for track limit infringements shall be distributed as follows. The first 3 warnings for a driver, there is no penalty. The 4th warning is a 5-second post-race time penalty. The 5th warning gets added up to 10 seconds, and the 6th warning is a drive-through penalty. And drive-through penalties must be served within 3 laps, and racing incidents shall be reviewed post-round. Those are all the rules and regulations and everything in between. Excuse me, ladies and gentlemen, I'm just going to sneeze. But with that, and just getting the sneeze out of the way there, a little bit of dust, we head over to our live pictures. And well, as we see our drivers making their way on around circuit right now, one driver who is not making their way around circuit, but is the Prime Championship leader going into tonight, that is Matthew Addy's NXTGEN Racing Yellow, as you see him parked up there in the Hyundai Veloster. And whilst the car itself's not yellow, you're actually looking at the white and red Hyundai Veloster, the championship leader by only 4 points at the moment, and definitely looking to have a strong run tonight. However, in front of him, you may be seeing there's an Elantra in front of him. That is not a car you've seen before. That is Callum Reed-Garton, a privateer, a very fast privateer at that. Join us as this round and onwards to the remainder of the series, and well, he'll be competing in the pro class there. And well, Callum Reed-Garton needs no introduction. Some of you may recall him from the GT3 Championship the NXTGEN Racing hosted earlier this year, and back in 2021, one of the high flyers there, and he's taken his craft from GT3s over to touring car racing class machinery. And well, you may want to liken him to a little bit of a Graham Hill in terms of whatever he competes in terms of car class, he seems to find a way to win in it. And will he be able to do so, given the fact he's going to be a sizable portion of points down in the championship? But never say never for Callum Reed-Garton. He's definitely looking very quick. We're looking to championship leaders. Meanwhile, we talked about our Prime Championship leader. What about our Pro Championship leader? Well, here he is, Mikey Doble from NDA Honda Racing, parked up in the pit lane at the moment with only a minute left to go in this final practice warm-up session. And, well, he is absolutely itching, I can tell you, given the fact that he's got all the points going his way, and he'll be looking to try and extend that lead as much as humanly possible. But speaking of drivers who are looking to get into the lead in their championship class, we can see here Daniel Holmer currently running behind one of the JW Motorsports machines. I believe that may be the number 32 car, and indeed it is the 32 of Reese Watt. And of course, these two rivals in P2, P3, Holmer in P2, Watt in P3 in the Prime Championship, and they'll both be looking to try and avoid fighting one another too hard, but at the same time they will need to battle one another to an extent, because they will both want the points off one another and the points off of Matthew Addy to take the lead of the championship going into the Christmas break. But as we do look to our Pro class, meanwhile, we can see here Andrew Pye in the Sim Racing Collective making his way through turn at number 4, and well, the Sim Racing Collective outfit have both been building a lot of momentum over the course of the last couple rounds. It didn't work out in round number 1, of course, a disastrous way to end the day at Donington, with Pike and Sharp being involved in the freeway incident, also by John Higgins Jr. and the three drivers all ending up in the gravel at turn number 6 there. But as they make the way on around right now, you can imagine that for Pike, given the run of form that he's currently building, he'll be looking to pick up some more top 5s tonight. And well, could we also see his fellow teammate do the same? Of course, we'll have to wait and find out, given that Kieran Sharp has been showing a lot of pace on paper as well. But as we look to Sam Smith here as he comes to line, parking up. In fact, the checker flag comes out in this final practice session, and well, he is done and dusted with regards to that. And now, well, with our drivers, I think we'll be very shortly making the way in to the pit lane, and it is time, ladies and gentlemen, for qualifying. Well, 20 minutes. Who's going to be on pole come the end of it? Let's find out. Well, as we wait for our drivers to make their way out of the pit lane then, what is the expected run of form here today? Well, we have already seen in this final practice session that we have had a number of drivers really demonstrate a lot of pace in the Honda in particular, in terms of that Honda just seems to be in a world of its own at the moment, the Honda Civic Type 1. You can see one of them here in the hands of Jamie Dury from NDA Honda Racing. But I don't think it's just going to be purely the story of the Honda Civic Type R, given the fact that we do have that 75 kilograms of success ballast being run in the Honda Civic. And what that will mean is over the course of the racing, you can imagine that weight will really start to wear into the front tyres and cause excess tyre wear. Now, on top of that, one other thing that does need to be considered is that the Hyundai Elantra we have seen in qualifying sessions in particular, it has really been giving itself an advocacy for pace in terms of being able to take the one-lap pole position phase. And well, perhaps one driver who's embodied that more than most is this man here as he makes his way on down towards turn at number 3 in amongst the medley, and that is Gianni Perrone, who you see there in the number 35 Elantra Verano Motorsport, the pro driver who put it on pole, of course, back in round number 2, and he'll be looking to try and do it again today in terms of taking that pole position in the Elantra as he heads on through. But let's also count out the Velosters, which have been showing quite a bit of pace, and well, we do have a number of Velosters out of the circuit. That's not one of them there, that's Mark Sykes in the Honda Civic Type R, but we will show you some of those Velosters in brief order. And what about the Audi RS3? We're expecting the Audi to be relatively strong in the first half of the lap, given the number of straights that the Audi will be competed on, and the fact that it has been geared for the straights. We can see Paul Scott here in his Audi RS3 making his way on around, but it will be in the latter half of the lap when we come to really turns 5, 6 onwards, which Paul Scott's making his way to at the moment. And that's where we'll start to see the Audi struggle a little bit by comparison due to the gear ratio, and therefore it may not be able to get into the optimum gear to be able to deliver the right amount of pace coming out the corner. Because of course, drop down too low again at Audi RS3, you end up with a lot of front end wheel spin as the cars try to deploy the power and also do the steering on corner exit. And that's the thing with these front engine front wheel drive cars, of course, they're very prone to understeer because the front wheels do all the hard work. Meanwhile, the rear wheels do very little work by comparison. But I try to run as much brake bias towards the rear, of course, to get the rear end to lift up and slide into the corners under braking, and that gives them the extra rotation and therefore the better corner approach. But as we see Paul Scott coming to the timing line, we look to Trev Anderson here, who's already making his way onto his first flying lap. We're not going to ride on board initially with our drivers for their first couple of flying laps. They want to get their tyres up to temperature at the moment. We talked about this before, but we typically do see it takes about 3 to 4 laps for our drivers to really get that tyre temperature up to the optimum, and we'll try to catch a lap about 3 flying laps in with one of our drivers to give you an idea of what it's like to deliver a lap or 2 around this Red Bull Ring circuit. And it is a very tricky circuit, that, as we say, it's a simplistic circuit on paper, given the emphasis on what is only 9 corners and a relatively straightforward layout in terms of heavy braking zone after heavy braking zone and a few trail braking zones to wrap up the rest of the lap. But within that simplicity lies the excitement in the fact that our drivers really can can push their utmost, and it becomes a much more driver-focused circuit in terms of what you could do behind the wheel of the car rather than what the car could do for you. And it's, of course, driver and car all come together, but really at this circuit it is about the driver being as brave as possible and getting the most out of the machinery, as we do see Davide Favo making his way through turn number 3 at the moment and heading on through 4 and up towards 5 as he gets ready to go into the trail braking zone here. A bit of traffic in front of you. You can see on that circuit map just how cramped it is in the run up towards Jochen Ring corner at turn number 8. A lot of drivers caught together, but one driver who's not quite caught up with the traffic jam at the moment, and another newcomer for today, another privateer join us, is Bernardo Kobe, as we see him making his way on down and around through turn number 6. We're just getting his data loaded at the moment for the purposes of going racing, so apologies for the fact it doesn't quite look fully loaded in terms of data at the moment on the timing tower, but that will be resolved very shortly. But welcome to Bernardo Kobe and also to Callum Reed-Garton, and we do look forward to how they both get on as we see him finally making his way down towards turn number 9 here, and he's loaded on the timing tower for you. But we do have plenty of drivers in attendance here, and as he makes his way on towards what is a second flying lap, we'll ride on board with him on his next flying lap. Let's look a little bit further afield at the moment. We look to Luke Jones here as he heads on down towards Jochen Ring corner himself and finding all the space on the circuit. And that's the thing with a lot of our drivers here as well. They'll look to try and get the toe off for one another on some of their qualifying laps, because the toe around here could be worth up to half a second, if not more, if they nail it right. But of course, the downside of trying to pick up the slipstream of another driver is if you pick the wrong driver to do it behind you, you're faster than them, or they make a mistake, then you have to back out of your lap or take evasive manoeuvres, and that normally costs you time, which means that your lap is going to be spoiled. So it is risk versus reward. And I think some drivers around here will just look to try and find clear space, which I can tell you that Luke Jones, I think he felt he had clear space, and he hasn't got it anymore, as he makes about towards turn number 2, and he has got an absolute plethora of cars that are all staying over to the right and hopefully will be lifting off for him, given the fact that he has the right to the racing line here, given he is on a fast lap compared to everyone else. Indeed, there you can see the Audi pulling over on the inside and behind. I believe that is Michael Lees, who's just tucked in behind and wants to use the toe off of the back of Jones in order to get himself all set when he makes his way onto his next lap. But as they make the way down the hill, we say hello in the YouTube chat there to Elwin Sykes, saying good luck to all for the Red Bull Ring. Good luck, Mark Sykes and Davide Favo. May it be clean up for you tonight. And well, where is Davide Favo here, you ask? Well, Davide Favo right now in the Audi is slid off circuit there at turn 6 and 7. Well, he's just about caught it before he's got to the tyre barrier, but I think trying to carry a bit too much speed down through turn number 6, returns to the circuit on the exit of 7. That's not the way you want to do it. And well, what exactly happened there? Where it looks as though we're not going to be able to quite catch the whole moment of Davide Favo. In fact, we will catch it now as he came on down, and as he heads into turn number 6, they're just going a bit deep under braking, and the car just went a straight line on, and then he just slid his way up towards what's the escape road down the right hand side and gradually rejoined. But as we return to our live pictures now, he heads onto another lap. A little bit of a wound there with regards to Favo in that he's going a little bit wrong, but as he heads up towards turn number 1, we look to what is one of our newcomer drivers. And well, of course, we will be taking a look at Colby as he makes his way up the hill and heading in towards turn number 2. And in fact, we've missed him going on to his lap right now, so we will look to one of our other drivers and come back to him a little bit later. And in fact, we can see here Callum Reed-Garton making his way into turn number 8, drifting his way on through in the Elantra. And what's this going to be from Callum Reed-Garton as he comes to the timeline? Yet to put a time on the board, but with only a quarter of the session gone, moving into the second quarter right now, he's looking very fast. He comes to that timing line and he crosses it. Where's the lap going to be? It's provisional pole position for Callum Reed-Garton by almost half a second over Will Redford there at 41.608 in the Elantra. The man is flying here, and I think he's not quite done it just yet as he makes his way up towards turn number 2. But as he comes roaring on through, we do look to a little bit further afield with regards to drivers who are making their way towards the end of their current lap, and we look to Jason Morris here, who comes on down and around through the final corner, finding himself right in the entanglement as Mikey Doble takes the provisional pole by a half a tenth over Callum Reed-Garton with 41.550. So everybody right now finding more and more time on circuit, and here's Bernardo Colby making his way in towards turn number 8, and we'll ride on board with him shortly for a flying lap of the Red Bull Ring circuit in the Hyundai Elantra as he comes on down to the braking zone and we jump on board. As he heads out to the final corner, goes a little bit deep there, actually compromises his exit line, and it'll cost him a little bit of speed in the run up towards turn number 1. And he's going to run with it here as he goes up the hill towards his braking zone. Doesn't improve that time, so looking to his left of the 100 metre board, and just after it goes onto the brakes, they're coming down from 4th to 2nd gear. A lot of rear brake bias, so you can see the car sliding off the lift onto the brakes as he makes his way now up towards turn number 2. In the long run up towards Remus, this is where we're expecting some of the major battles to occur today, and as he continues to make his way all the the way out towards the braking zone. He'll gradually bring the car more and more over to the left, look for his brake mark at the 100 metre board, brake after about 80 to 75 metres, comes into the early apex and brings it out in first gear as he now powers back up through the gearbox and down towards turn number 3. All full throttle at this point once more, and of course now we go from an uphill braking zone into a downhill braking zone, and you'll notice here we go a bit more in terms of the gradient as we get to within 300 metres, looks to his left there and brakes at about 110 metres, using the 100 board in his left hand side as a marker, coming down to second gear and powers out the corner as soon as possible, doesn't use the full width of the corner there, and that's going to cost about half a tenth in retrospect as he makes his way through the kink of 4 and up towards 5 onto the brakes here at the 50 metre board, drifting in there, really having to fight with braking oversteer as he comes through turn number 5 in third gear. Now down towards turn number 6, he goes up to 4th, back down to 3rd here as he goes for a very early apex, tries to get the 2 left-hand wheels onto the apex curve to get the car to over-rotate as he comes through turn number 7, runs a little bit deep, they're carrying a bit too much speed as he now heads up towards turn number 8, flat out here into the downhill braking zone, looking for the marshal's post on the left-hand side, then brakes on the 100 metre board, and as he comes on through the right hand and now in 4th gear, heading down towards the final corner into A1 ring corner, turn number 9, brakes down to 3rd, gets back on the power as soon as he clears the apex and lets the car roll now. And what's it going to be this time as he comes to the line? I don't think it's been a sizable improvement. I think he's left quite a bit on the table. And in fact, he's going to stay P25 as he crosses the line. He's got more to do if he wants to get himself up into the top 20. But that was a lap on board with Bernardo Kolbe as he made his way around in the Hyundai Elantra end. But as he makes his way onto another lap, we look to Chris Danes, who finds himself in amongst a lollygag of cars. He heads down towards turn number 3 in the charge here, of course, trying to pick up that distant tow. And everybody here trying to siphon some straight line speed off of one another. And again, you look at that circuit map and notice how about 66% or 2/3 of our pack are all concentrated in the run from turn 2 through to turn number 6. And well, we have got plenty of space to play with here. We've got 4 kilometres of road, but all of our drivers want to be localised within 1.5 kilometres of it. And that goes to show how many drivers are really priding themselves on using the slipstream to gain that lap time advantage. Of course, the challenge with that is, can they find the right amount of tow at the right time in order to deliver the ultimate lap? We would say that Mikey Doble definitely did find that on his lap if he had the tow. Callum Regarson, we saw, did not have any tow. Meanwhile, Will Redford comes across the line without any tow, and he goes for original fastest there on a 41.248, 3/10 faster. I think the better laps are actually coming from drivers who are not in the tow, as Gianni Peroni goes to P2 there in the tow. The Verona Motorsport driver goes for one of 41.546 and really delivering right now as we move into the second half of this qualifying session, where it does seem to be some drivers are making the tow work, others are deciding to go in the complete clear air, and as they make the way on around, we do look from our Hyundai Elantra Peroni here to our Audi RS3 driver Gavin Gardner, who makes his way onto another lap and finds himself at the back of a small trio of cars, and that's why the iRacing esports machines, I believe that maybe Nick Clibbins just in front of him, and then he does have one NXTGEN Racing Hondas. I think that's one of the NXTGEN Racing yellow cars. They made the way up the hill, but we're not 100% sure on that. But what we are sure of at the moment is that Gardner is trying to find more time. He's currently P18 overall, P13 in class, and this qualifying session is not going the way he wants it as the iRacing esports car moves out of the way there, very polite, and make sure to make it very clear as they now head down towards turn at number 3. And you can see the iRace car just lifting off and then tucking back into the tow as they build up the speed. And heading down towards turn number 3 here, hot on the brakes they go, and as they come through the right-hander at turn number 3, we look to Callum Regarson, who's coming to the line. He's gone green in all sectors so far. It's a personal best. Is it going to be enough to take for original pole back? It is a 40.920. 3/10 there. Regarson is absolutely putting a rubber stamp on his debut right now in this qualifying session and saying to everyone, yes, I'm here and I'm here to deliver. That is 3/10 more than what anybody else has been able to achieve. But Will Redford responds and improves in P2 of a 41.007, less than a tenth off here, but there's still plenty of time on the cards it would seem. This track is only evolving and getting faster as we see Mikey Doble moves to P3 as well, and Mikey Doble in the clear air there by the looks of things, gaining a lot of time by just pushing the lap down, and what our pros really finding that lap time right now. Meanwhile, in the Prime class, where it seems though here from one member of the Doble family to another, it's Joseph Doble, who is currently your Prime pole sitter by only what is 300ths over Daniel Holmer. And as Joseph Doble makes his way up towards turn number 2 in the thick of it here in terms of cars, but the Honda Civic driver definitely finding a way to deliver, as meanwhile Daniel Holmer heads to the timing line here, not improving on his current lap, and he's going to have to do a bit more if he wants to try and creep out of Doble on that 5th row of the grid. but as he comes rolling on through, we do look from him to some drivers who are a little bit further on around in terms of trying to find that space on circuit. Here is Trev Anderson, who right now finds himself quite distant from the drivers in front of him, and the Honda Civic Type R drivers a lot of space to play with. The last of our drivers in terms of time set at the moment in P33, but I think he'll feel as though he's still got plenty of time to find out there. And indeed, with Daniel Weston and Bram G. Clays yet to put laps on the board, well, Bram Clays right now making his way on around in the Audi RS3, and I think he'll be improving at some point in this session. I can tell you who else is trying to improve at the moment, and that is Will Redford, who makes his way through 8 into 9 here. We ride on board with Redford as he takes us around for a flying lap in the Civic Type R. He's making his way across that timeline and heading up towards turn number 1. Does not improve on this lap. He's been setting himself up for a flying lap, and now it's go, go, go. Looking to his left here, the Honda will be able to brake a little bit later as he brakes there about 80 metres from turn 1, drifts his way and catches the car there sideways in second gear and powers out immediately as he gets the distant toe of the velocity in front as he now heads up towards Remus Corner at turn number 2. Now here, the downside of the Honda is it doesn't have straight line speed compared to its peers, while its weaknesses, and as he makes his way up towards turn number 2, onto the brakes he'll go at the 50-metre board, or as close as possible to it, braking there about 70 metres as he comes through in first gear, and now makes his way down towards turn 3 as we see that Chris Daines and Gavin Garner improve, the pair of them to P5, P6 respectively. Runner Motorsport on the charge as well inside the top 6, as meanwhile we continue to ride on board here with Redford, now looking into the downhill braking zone for Gessler Corner, and as he brakes at the 100-metre board, coming into second gear, gets a nice early apex there and powers out, gets all the run outs. That's Ian Manners in front there, who almost goes off onto the gravel on the exit of 3. Now through 4 they're going up towards turn number 5 into Power Horse, looking to the 50-metre board, braking at the 50 board, drop into third gear, a nice tight apex gets on the power, nice and early as a result as he really hooks those left tyres, takes a bit of gravel and that pulls the car slightly for Redford as he heads through 6 and into 7, but he hooks up 6 very nicely, but this isn't the lap he's wanted in terms of the way that turns 5 and 6 played out as he now makes his way up towards 7 and he aborts the lap there heading into 8. He's not impressed with that at all, and well, he's got plenty of time to go in order to try and put another one on, but Redford deciding that lap is a botched one, he's going to have to do another. As he heads down into turn number 9, we look from him to Paul Scott, who in the Audi RS3 currently looking for more lap time out there, and the Audi's having very mixed fortunes it would seem, but Gavin Garner showing that the Audi does have some potential being P6 overall and in the pro class. Meanwhile, the majority of our Audis are looking much further down the order. As you can see there, Paul Scott, the next Audi in the sequence, P28, and then we have Davide Favo P32 and Bram Clays has yet to put a time on the board. As Adam Delmont improves to P8 there, overall at a 41.695. It's anyone's guess how it's going to play out. And again, we talked about this at Zolder, just how close the field is in terms of pace. But look at the top 15 there, ladies and gents, for the time tab from Callum Reed-Garton on provisional pole all the way to Martin Shirley in P15. It's a tiny sliver over 1 second separating 15 drivers. This field is the closest it could ever want to be. As we see there, Reese Watt improves to P14. That's P4 in the Prime class, the 41.883. He jumps up. Mark Sykes improves to P18 overall as well in what is their P7 in class. There's still time for our primes. We've got more and more drivers trying to squeeze within that 1 second window of the pole sitter as Paul Scott backs off the lap here and moves out the way of everybody trying to come through, including Daniel Holmer, but then tucks back in. But as he heads on down, let's take a look to Rob McGregor here, who you can see running around in the HSR Veloster behind what is John Higgins Jr. in front of him. And well, Rob McGregor, we see him for the first time this season. Welcome to Rob, of course, one of the favourites from season 1 in the NXTCC. Absolutely lovely chap, loves the racing and whatnot, and it's great to see him out on circuit, join the HSR team of Higgins Senior, Higgins Jr. I believe Bobby Thompson will be coming in the second half of the season, but as they make their way through turn number 1, we can see here that Rob McGregor's got a lot to do for P26 currently as Callum Reed-Garton goes even faster on provisional pole on a 40.455. Now over half a second faster than Will Redford. Surely Callum Reed-Garton has got this all said and done, or has he? That's the question. We focus on Rob McGregor here as he makes his way into turn number 2, and of course the problem here, you can see HSR all working together. That is Higgins Senior behind. Higgins Senior have just come back off of holiday, of course. That's why he's not been available for the last couple of rounds. But as he makes his way in the run down towards turn number 3, in fact, just I think the last round, not the last couple of rounds, if I correct myself. But as he comes down onto the brakes here, well, we can see the Veloster crew are running on through. But in return, now they're caught up behind the Audi RS3 of Paul Scott. And that's the problem when you pick the wrong car or the wrong horse to bet your slipstream on. You end up in one of those situations where whereby your lap could potentially be compromised. And Paul Scott, they're going a little bit deep into 5. Now, of course, he will argue he is on a fast lap, and he may be improving, to be fair. So it's the responsibility of the drivers behind to make a safe decision to back off. Alternatively, if they can find a way through, they've got to do it on a straightaway, but diving into a corner is going to be frowned upon by the stewards. And you can see here, Higgins Jr. looking to go up the inside. This is going to be a little bit tense because, of course, if Paul Scott thinks he's on a flyer, then they're all impeding one another. But this is not the way they want it right now, and it's definitely causing problems in the final 1.5 minutes of qualifying. As we say hello to King Sim Racing, they're saying good luck, all have fun. We really appreciate it, King Sim, and hope you're doing well. As we see here, HSR coming through, but Paul Scott not pleased with that whatsoever as he creeps the line, and that is his qualifying session effectively done and dusted. But now HSR got Vera out, and they take one another into turn number 1, and that's McGregor and Higgins Jr., and it's a disaster there as they come on through. Meanwhile, we look from them up to our very top step of the grid right now, and Callum Regarton, well, he makes his way on through for one more lap, but does he need to improve? I think not, given the advantage he's got currently, but we'll wait and see. But our Lantra 100% going some, as meanwhile Adam Delmont crosses the line, and well, he's currently P9, he improves to P4 here as he heads up towards turn number 1 into the braking zone. He makes his way, and the Excite Racing driver, who of course, remember, at Zolder was absolutely on form, the strongest we have seen from him all season, along with Adam McNally, and Excite Racing really coming to their own. And given the fact that Delmon's not been feeling too well recently, well, it's testament to his tenacity to be back in the car and doing everything he can in order to fly high for Excite Racing. But meanwhile, as we look from our pro driver here to what is Matthew Addy, our Prime Championship leader, and the Veloster really just not going the way that Matthew Addy wants it to go, as he currently is sat P19 overall, P7 in the Prime class in this qualifying session. Will surely be getting to time. It will be 20 minutes by the time he's cleared Remus corner at turn number 2, and then the big question will be who can improve at the deadlock in terms of its sudden death on the lap times. Now everyone has to finish their final lap, and then that's where they're going to line up on the grid. And where will we see drivers? We see Luke Jones improves to P23 as some drivers make their way into the pits. Chris Daines pulls off circuit there, bucks up and decides to jump to the pit shortly. But as we see Addy coming on down, we look to Reed Garton, who is going even faster right now as he comes down through the final corner. He doesn't need a set purple sector because he is the purple sector man. And as he comes to a timeline here, what's it going to be now? As the checker flag waves, he crosses the line, and it's a 40.211. My good lord, Reed Garton has absolutely raised the bar into the stratosphere. Can Redford respond as he crosses the line? He's 8 tenths down, crosses it, and he does not improve, does Redford. So right now, Reed Garton is definitely looking to be on pole. Adam Delmont comes across the line. What can he do here on his final lap? I don't think it's going to improve him. Meanwhile, Martin Shirley behind, currently P9. He jumps up to P8, improves there to jump ahead of Daniel Holmer. Meanwhile, Sam Smith moves up to P10. Daniel Holmer's heading on through into turn number 6 right now, and he's currently your prime pole sitter by a margin of what is, unless my maths is incorrect, 2 tenths, or almost 2.5 tenths over Jason Morris. But Daniel Holmer definitely not having a pole lap by a major margin at the moment, but still with an edge over his peers as he heads on down. We've still got more drivers to go, including Bram Claves, who comes into the pit lane. In fact, as you see him peeling off there in the rear of the picture, and as we see Daniel Holmer coming down for the final corner, will he be able to improve as he comes to the timeline? Well, it's going to be close here, given the fact he's only improved in Sector 1. He does improve. He moves to P7 there, the prime driver. That's overall on a 41.322. We left the best to last, and he has delivered as now Michael Lees comes on down, and will Lees not having a strong qualifying session, P19. It has not worked out for the Excite Racing driver at all. As what about Reese Watt? Well, I think, in fact, Reese Watt's already in the pit lane. We are just waiting to see who else is out there. Well, I think everybody is practically said and done now, given that Ian Manners did come across the timeline after the 20 minutes had expired, and I think Philip Bruberg has also come on down, and well, he's making his way into the final corner here. But I believe this lap was started after the checker flag came out. I may be incorrect in that assessment, but as he comes to the line here, he is going to improve by the looks of things. He crosses that timeline, and well, I don't think the lap's going to count because he is P27. He does not improve, and no time is registered there, so that confirms our suspicions. The Bright Esports driver saving it all there to a lap that was not counted, and well, that is qualifying, ladies and gentlemen. Callum Regarton takes pole position by 8 tenths. But as they get ready to line up on the grid for race number 1, let's take you through the grid. So they line up as follows for the opening race of round 4 of season 2 of the NXTCC. Callum Regarton starts on pole position on his debut as privateer in the pro class, joined on the front row by NDA Honda Racing's Will Redford. Then on row number 2, it's Gavin Garner and Mikey Doble, the Verano Motorsport driver, putting in an absolutely brilliant end to his qualifying session, putting the Verano Motorsport Audi RS3 right in the prime contention position. Mikey Doble there, P4 with an arm's reach to the top positions. He'll definitely be pleased with that. Adam Delmont starts P5 there for Excite Racing with Johnny Peroni alongside in P6. And then on the fourth row, we have your pro and pole sitter in P7 of Bright Esports' Daniel Holmer, who is joined by Chris Daines in P8. Behind them on the fifth row, Martin Shirley and Sam Smith completing the top 10, with the Sim Racing Collective's Andrew Pike best the rest in P11, joined by Pro-Am Jason Morris there from iRacing Esports. Behind them, on row number 7, Alan McCain and Jamie Dory line up together, followed on row number 8 by John Higgins Jr. and Reese Watt from JW Motorsport. We then have Joseph Doble and Isaac Doble, who line up side by side on row at number 9, the Pro-Am drivers there, with Michael Lees and Ian Manners starting on the 10th row. Matthew Addy starts P21 there in a difficult qualifying session, and perhaps his weakest qualifying session of the season so far, joined by Mark Sykes. The two next-gen racing drives, one for yellow, one for blue. They'll go toe-to-toe into turns 1 and 2 for definite. Then on row number 12, we have Lee Horn from next-gen racing yellow, joined by the HSR driver of John Higgins Sr. in P24. Then on row number 13, it's JW Motorsports' Luke Jones and HSR's Rob McGregor, who are followed up on row number 14 by Philip Bruberg and Paul Scott. Then on row number 15, on his debut, Bernardo Colbe there starts P29, the privateer, joined by Jonathan Collins from Next Gen Racing Blue in P30, with Nigel Stock from 52 Zilla with Crest Racing starting P31, and Davide Faro P32. And then our final row of this grid, well, I believe in fact not quite our final row, but on our penultimate row, on row number, number 17, Trevor Anderson for JW Motorsport and Bram G. Clays for Simtech Racing. And then on our final row, last but not least, it'll be Daniel Weston for 52 Zilla with Crest Racing. But with the grid covered, ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for our drivers to start making their way behind the pace car here, and we're starting with a pace car today due to safety concerns in the run to turn number 1 off of the standing start. And given that a good number of drives will be essentially starting quite a way back on the run out of turn number 9, and also it's going to be a very short run into turn number 1, so the safety car and a rolling start has been deployed in order to offset the potential risk of a major smash into turn number 1. But as our drivers head on around right now, we reload the overrace so you can see the circuit map, and we are only moments away from going racing, and it will be Callum Regarton who takes us away to the green as he gradually gets that tyre temperature up. The safety car has pulled off into the distance, and now we wait to go racing. And it's lights out and away we go as he builds up the speed, and they charge towards turn number 1, and Callum Regarton immediately has to go on the defensive into turn 1 versus there Will Redford, who looks at the nerves as you see they all come charging into the braking zone here, and on cold tyres and cold brakes it's all about trying to survive as we've got a car going round there. That's Higgins Jr. who goes sideways as well, but I think they've all mostly survived. Nobody spun completely around, a couple of knocks and bits of contact, but meanwhile looking up to the front, Will Redford here immediately on the offensive. He knows he's got to get ahead of Regarton in the run to turn number 2. As always, Regarton will just run away with this early on, and Redford on the inside here makes Garton go outwards, and as they head out of turn number 3, we look a little bit further back here and we see Chris Daines gaining 1 place off the line, chasing after Adam Delmont, who's lost a place by comparison as they make their way down towards turn number 3. Now Luke Jones as well, really on the charge here. Luke Jones gaining 8 places off the line as they come on through towards turn number 3, battling side by side here with what is Reese Watt trying to take the fight as they head on down. That's not Reese Watt, my apologies, that's Alan McCain, and McCain on the inside there trying to outbrake his rival, as meanwhile a little bit further back we can see John Higgins Jr. there now trying to recover after a difficult start through turn number 1. He was sideways of course in the opening corner, much like a couple of drives in front of him, as they make their way through 4 and up into 5 in the charge into the trail braking zone. We look back up to Callum Regarton here and Will Redford, who are battling side by side in the run through 5 and 6. They've carried this on from turn 2 through 3 from what I'm hearing in my ear, and as they come roaring on through the right hander at turn 7, it's Regarton on the inside now as they make their way in towards the braking zone for turn number 8. Mikey Doble tucked in behind now as they come onto the anchors, and who's going to be the braver of the breakers here? As you can see, Redford's not backing out, he's giving no quarter. Regarton as well is not giving a quarter. Both of them right now are pushing on, and as they make their way out to the final corner for the first time, Will Redford almost sideways there on corner exit, and it is Callum Regarton who leads after 1 lap here at the Red Bull soaring ahead of Will Redford behind in P2, followed by Will. In fact, I say that Mikey Doble jumps ahead, and as they come up towards turn number 1 once again, Doble on the inside here, trying to make the move on Redford, of course his rival as well as teammate, and as they come on through the corner behind, it's Gavin Garner P3, followed by Gianni Peroni P5, and then it's Adam Delmont P6, Chris Daines P7, Sam Smith P8, Prime leader Daniel Homer P9, and Michael Lees P10. As they come charging up the hill, you can see now just how much defence Will Redford's got to put it in, being scuppered by his teammate on the exit of 1. Now he's got to hold off the pack of wolves behind as it's 3 wide then. Gianni Peroni looks to go up the inside of the pair of Delmont and also what is Gardner in the run on down. Can he get it done? However, as they make the way towards the braking zone, I think Peroni's going to get this done here and make a classic double move in the run through 2 and in towards 3. Onto the brakes he goes, nose ahead here, and Gianni Peroni gains 2 places the price of 1 in the space of 2 corners, as meanwhile Mikey Doble goes deep and wide, and that is going to give Will Redford the opportunity to cut back around the outside here as they make the way in towards turn number 5. But Will Redford and Mikey Doble both making errors so far and falling out of sync as a result, as they make the way in towards turn number 6 and out of sync of their rival of Canterbury Garters. Meanwhile, Adam Delmont into the tyre barrier there. I'm not sure what happened to the Excite Racing driver, but it's all gone horribly wrong. We've got multiple drivers off. Gavin Gardner as well, who takes the escape road there, and there's a bit of drama between them. What exactly happened? Making their way on downhill, and as they headed into turn, oh goodness me, and there's the contact there, and Gavin Gardner in clipping with Adam Delmont, and Chris Daines coming into the back of it and giving a tap to his teammate on the rear, and Chris Daines losing out as well, as we saw him there in the rear of the picture, but all 3 of them having a difficult moment, I believe. Chris Daines with the damage may have to have come into the pits as a result, but as we return to the live pictures right now, heading up the hill, you can see here things are starting to settle down a little bit as we look to Nigel Stock a bit further back, who's battling with Trevor Anderson here. In fact, I think Trevor Anderson's just made the move on Nigel Stock for what is P28 or P16 in their class, as they make the way out of turn number 1. The Primes fighting here, and we've been focused quite heavily on the pros so far, but we now look to the Primes, and we see Matthew Addy here, who after a reasonable start getting 2 places off the line, now having to defend versus fellow Veloster of what is Ian Manners. They come into Remus corner, and as they exit on out, well, Matthew Addy seems to have got this defence nailed and done. Meanwhile, a bit further up the road, we'd see that Michael Lees here under pressure from Daniel Homer as he defends on the inside, and Homer, the Prime leader's trying to overtake the pro here for overall position and overall points. And well, of course, the thing for Daniel Homer, he's got to be careful with, because he fights the pros too hard and ends up in a confrontation, and what's going to end up happening is he'll be pushed backwards towards Jason Morris, who in P10 you can see there in the rear of the picture briefly there. It's Morris under pressure from Jamie Dory, and the iRacing Esports driver drifting his way into turn number 5. It is pandemonium in those Elantras under brake, and they just slide the way into corners as they come on down, and Morris, having gone deep at 5, goes even deeper into 6, and he can't really bring the car back onto the racing line yet, but now he can with Philip Bruberg close by. And look at Alan McCain as well. Right now it's an Elantra freeway fight into turn number 8, and McCain looks at the move of iRacing Esports. Can he find it? I think he's going to go all in here. He tries to get his nose stuck in versus Bruberg. Bruberg goes a bit wide. He's got to be careful. Oh, goodness me. And McCain and Bruberg in contact there. Well, I think McCain's going to be absolutely fuming at that. Bruberg would argue, well, I needed somewhere to return to. And I think the pair of them might be called in front of the stewards post-race. But meanwhile, we look a bit further ahead of them now. They've fallen down the order. And we see Mark Sykes here battling with Joseph Doble. Doble on the inside, Sykes on the outside here. It's the battle of the next-gen Hondas. And will Doble hold the position there as meanwhile Isaac Doble behind looks at this and looks at the cutback in the run out of turn number 1. But as they charge their way up the hill right now, Sykes out of position, out of time and out of speed on the straightaway. And this is only going to go one of 2 ways. It is going to, I think, end up with him dropping on behind as they make the way in towards the braking zone here for turn number 2. But onto the brakes they go, and Ian Manners here on the inside, and Matthew Addy gets the move done there versus Matthew Addy and Joseph Doble, and Isaac Doble make the way past Mark Sykes and get the move done as well. They're all moving up, these 4 drivers. Mark Sykes meanwhile losing out. He's still gained the place compared to his starting position, but not the way he wants to be going. He wants to be going forward, not backwards. As meanwhile, speaking of going a bit further backwards down the grid, we see here battling for his P29, P30. It's Davide Favo versus Jonathan Collins. It's Favo on the inside for CSA Racing. Meanwhile, on the outside is Jonathan Collins, and Favo here gets his elbows out there in the Audi RS3, which is what we like to see under braking, and gets the move done there, does the South African. And for him, that's P17 gained in the prime class. But meanwhile, we look a bit further up the order, up to Reese Watt here. who makes his way in the pursuit. We've got a car off. I had to cut him across my falls there, ladies and gentlemen. We've got a car off at turn number 7 in the form of Michael Lease, in fact. And Michael Lease rejoins, but he has lost multiple places as a result. He's dropped out to P9 from what was P7 at the time. And I think there was a bit more to that than meets the eye. And we try to find out exactly what happened. Well, here is a replay of what happened to Michael Lease only moments ago, coming down into turn number 6. He's carried way too much speed on the exit of the corner, and the car's just straight lined on then. He's decided he's going to rejoin a corner exit. Oh my good lord, and that was almost tears for Daniel Holmer. Remember what we said earlier, it only takes one moment and that Prime League can be all in the dust. But as he brings himself up to speed now, does Holmer, and also at least returns those live pictures. And we look to Mikey Doble here, going up the inside of Gianni Peroni into Remus corner in the battle for P3 in the Pro Class. And as they come out to the right-hander and now down towards turn number 3, well, Peroni's going to have to run here on the straight, but the question is, could Doble defend on the outside? And you can see, look at the straight line speed differential here between the Elantra and the Honda. The Elantra is absolutely flying, but where the Honda has the strength of return, it's under braking. It's very hard to beat in terms of braking distance. So Peroni has to wait his turn once again, as meanwhile Andrew Pike here battling side by side with Michael Lease. This is for pro position. They're battling for P8 overall, but for them P7 in class. And look at Jamie Dory trying to get to the mix here as they make the way into turn number 5. Onto the brakes they go. Lease on the inside as we've got a lock-up just ahead, and it looks like that lock-up is from, I believe, that is Sam Smith who had the lock-up into turn 5. But Jamie Dory here finds himself hung dry on the outside, and Lease holds the position for the time being as they make the way through 6 and 7. And Jamie Dory is not giving up here as we ride on board with the Honda Civic Type R, driving Lease on his right-hand side here. You can see Pike starting to break off into the distance by 4/10. Onto the brakes they go. Lease defends hard, and of course he's got every right to. He's defending against the reigning pro champion as they make the way down to turn number 9. And as they come on through, well, Dory's got the better run here, but will he have the beans on the straight given the excess weight in the Honda, plus also its weakness on the straights in general? I don't think he's got enough there. I think he's going to have to wait for the run to turn number 2, and in fact he backs out there, putting all of his investment in looking for the exit out of the opening corner. And now the run up towards 2, you can see that Lee's getting a much better run by comparison, and Dory will slowly gain, but by no means enough. He's going to have to really push a move here if he wants to gain position, because otherwise I think he could be stuck here for the long term. But meanwhile, as we look from them to Luke Jones and also Ian Manners and Rob McGregor. Rob McGregor, the head of the trio, he defends on the inside there, the HSR Veloster. Meanwhile, on the inside, that's Luke Jones going for the move on Ian Manners. Manners on the outside, and it looks like Manners is going for the cutback, but all he finds himself cutting back into is the rear bumper of Jones. But he's still got the momentum, has Manners, so you have to bar my forgiveness here in the fact that he has found a way on through and misinterpreted that. And Manners gets a wonderful cutback move there as the 52 Silver Crest Racing driver moves up into P15 overall and back into the top 5 of the Prime class here as they battle for P4, which is occupied by Rob McGregor in the class as they make the way through turns 4 and into 5. But as they head into the braking zone here, we've still got just over half the race remaining. Looks as though we're going to be going 15 laps rather than the previously forecasted 14 laps, but that's no difference at all, of course, to you guys and girls tuned at home. And I don't think we mind it here in the commentary booth because it gives us one extra lap of racing, which we all love. And as our drivers make the way on through here, we look to Martin Shirley, who right now, one of the unsung heroes of the race start, really moving all the way up the order, and the Simtech Racing driver has moved all the way up into P3 in the Pro class, giving the lead to Daniel Holmer there in terms of P3. But as they make the way up towards turn 1 once again, Daniel Holmer continues to fly high, but you can see behind him you've got the Pro Pack fighting tooth and nail, as it looks as though there Mikey Doble coming in very hot behind Peroni. There's contact between the two of them, but they both survive it. Doble trying to give Peroni a little bit of a push along here to say to him, do you mind getting a move on because we're losing time. I think Peroni here is giving it everything he's got, but Mikey Doble wants a bit more as they make the way up the hill, and Peroni defends as hard as possible. He puts himself so tight to the inside, he's going to have to bring the car out eventually to give himself some apex. And as they make the way through, Doble looks at the cutback, but again now, watch this, Doble gets all the momentum out the corner, and then he hits 4th gear, and now the Elantra comes alive by comparison. And this is the problem that Doble's got, in the fact he just does not have straight line speed here, and he needs it in spades in order to be able to beat the Elantra. But he's got the inside there, he's got the better brakes, and he seems to get it hooked up nicely. For turn number 3, Peroni looks to get the cutback here out of 3 into 4, but it'll put him on the outside for 5. And as they head their way out towards turn number 5 at the moment, Brian is going to get his nose ahead, but there's only one real way through turn number 5, and that is on that natural race 9 on the inside if you're defending, and as a result they settle the differences for the time being. But meanwhile, further down the order here, we look to Joseph Doble in P18, P7 in the prime class, and as he heads on down through turn number 5 himself, looks though they're hooked up behind Adam Delmont, and indeed Delmont out of position now, and so many pros out of position, including Gavin Gardner, who we see here a little bit further back, making the move on Isaac Doble there. Does he get it done? I don't think so. I think Isaac Doble actually gets the better run off at turn number 7 as they head up towards turn number 8. Into the braking zone they go, and Doble going to be on the inside defending here, and of course the primes can fight with the pros as much as they want. There's no rule forbidding them from doing so, and as they make their way down to turn 9, it's going to be too wide for A1. Gardner holds it all the way around the outside. Fair racing from Isaac Doble as well. Great maturity being shown from the rookie in his first season in the NXTCC, and Gavin Gardner gains the place, but he's made to work for it as they head up towards turn number 1 once again. Meanwhile, further back, Paul Scott here looking for the move on Bonan Kobe as they make their way up towards turn 1. Can't quite find it and has to tuck back in the Audi, but he may just have the run out of the corner. But as they head on up their hill, we look to a little bit further up the road, and this is Mark Sykes here battling with Lee Horn and also Luke Jones, and Lee Horn giving a little bit of a love bump on the rear there to Mark Sykes, trying to help his fellow NXTGEN Racing driver along. But Jones on the outside here, he's going to have all the room to play with as Sykes has to defend from Jones and also make sure that he doesn't overstep the corner with the tap on the rear on that inside line. And Luke Jones here with an absolutely brilliant run. He may just quite get this done, but it's Honda versus Honda versus Honda, and with a trio of Hondas all together, all the same car, it all comes down to the drivers. They make the way into braking, and Luke Jones gets it done in the defence there as they make the way out of 3. He picks the 2 places back up and carries on his merry way, but you can see here as they head through 4, Sykes is going to try and look around the outside, as meanwhile a little bit further back, Gavin Gardner trying to pick his way up the inside of Lee Horn, and he'll get it there, I believe, as Gardner makes the move. Lee Horn on the outside. Lee Horn, I think he's going to have to back out and look for a cutback if he wants to fight this. As always, he's only going to be higher and higher on that outside line, and then again Gavin Gardner not pressing his rival as much as perhaps he could here, and Lee Horn's able to retain the position. Meanwhile, looking from them to a little bit further up the road to Michael Lees. And Lee's here battling hard with Jamie Dory as they make their way out to the final corner. They're battling for P9 overall, P8 in the pro class as they make their way up towards turn number 1 once again. Sam Smith just ahead of them, but it's Andrew Pike who's the closest rival to them as they head under braking here, and as they roll the way through turn number 1 at the moment. Lees gets an absolutely beautiful run out of turn number 1, but it's completely compromised in the fact that he's got Andrew Pike right in front of him. Pike there too close for comfort, as meanwhile we look up to the further portion of the run to turn number 2, and Martin Shirley here battling for P4 overall with Mikey Doble. Doble up the inside, then the Simtech racing driver, I think, releasing the position and focusing on consolidating the places he can defend in terms of raw pace, as Michael Lees here finds himself on the outside of turn 2 trying to make the move on Andrew Pike, but it's all kicking off once again inside the top 10. It went a little bit quiet for a brief period, but now the battles are on, the elbows are out, and Andrew Pike is getting his elbows out versus Michael Lees, but Lees going all the way around the outside under braking. But look at Jamie Dory here as well, trying to get his nose in. He can't quite find it, but Lees goes a bit wide as he gets the power down, and Dory picks up the space, and you can see now that John Higgins Jr., who has recovered all the way up to P11 here after a difficult start, well, he's trying to get into the mixers. Meanwhile, they're 3 wide for a brief moment. We saw Reese Watt holding off Ian Manners, and in return Rob McGregor trying to also come on through in this battle for what is P3 in the prime class as they head through turn 6 and 7, and we ride on board with Rob McGregor here as he chases down Ian Manners. As they make the way up towards turn number 8, it's the battle of the Velocitas and the Civic in front of them as they head in to Jochen corner. And what's very interesting here, of course, for a good number of drivers, is a lot of them are not used to racing with Rob McGregor. Of course, a return from season 1 of the NXTCC, whereas Ian Manners and Reese, of course, have not had the pleasure of racing with McGregor. McGregor, a very hard and firm racer, but at the same time, a very fair racer at that page, just like the whole outfit are. And McGregor not able to get the run out of 9 into turn number 1, but he'll be focusing more on the run up towards turn number 2 as he gets onto the brakes here, getting very close, and Manners there sliding his way on through. In fact, McGregor not getting the run he wanted there and them to back off a little bit. They'll stay line astern this time in the run, but meanwhile, speaking of the drivers, will not be staying line astern as we get a nice zoom in there of the front right wheel of what is Johnny Brownie's run on Motorsport Elantra, where he just made the move on Martin Shirley for what is P4 in class, P5 overall, and that's in the pro class as they make their way down towards turn number 3. But in the charge down here, Shirley's not going to give up, and in fact he's going all in here in the Veloster as they look through, but Brownie holds it around the outside, and Shirley they're locking up the front brakes and squirming a little bit under braking. You could see the front of the car just wobbling slightly, and it was not to be this time around, but definitely trying to make the move count as they head on through. But as they make their way to turn number 5, the difference has been made, as meanwhile we see Reese Watt here battling with Michael Lease. In fact, Michael Lease only moments ago heading off track. We'll take a look back at what exactly happened in a short while, but right now focusing on the here and now and the live pictures. Lease on the inside here, Reese Watt being given the position on the outside there to play with, and well, he makes his best of it in terms of battling, but also ensuring he doesn't lose out to Ian Manners, who once again is thwarted by the JW Motorsport driver, who just seems to find a knack of keeping them at bay, even in the most disadvantageous track positions as they make their way into turn number 8. But you see Adam Delmont as well trying to cut his way through the primes. The pro driver wants to pick up some more places and go hunting after Michael Lease and Jamie Dory, P12, P10 respectively. Adam Delmont P15 overall as they head on through and on to another lap. Not many laps remaining. We're into the final third of race number 1 here. As we see Ian Manners taking a bit of a peek, he thinks about it there versus Reese Watt, but the 52 Silver Crest Racing driver then backs out, and you can understand why he wants to try and find a move as soon as possible. I think he feels as though if he can clear Watt, he will have the pace to then chase after next prime driver Jason Morris, who's just a bit further up the road from this pack. Here is Jason Morris for iRacing Esports, enjoying one of his strongest races this season, but meanwhile for Ian Manners, he's got a bigger problem. That's Adam Delmont coming roaring up his inside, and Delmont just gets it stopped in time. A lovely move there from Adam Delmont. To be fair, a compliant Ian Manners as well, in fact respecting that Delmont was going to try and go for the move, but they've all survived it. No contact whatsoever. Manners on the outside line there, giving himself the run down towards turn number 3, where he can take the most natural line. Meanwhile, further back in the run down towards 3 themselves at the moment, we've heard about Fernando Kobe trying to fight his way up to P24. He's there now. Alan McCain on the inside of Paul Scott here. The iRacing Esports driving the left of your picture, outbraking Paul Scott, under braking it in the next gen racing Audi. Gets the move done for P25 there. What is P13 in the prime class? As they make their way out to turn 4 now and up towards turn number 5. But as they come roaring on through, we look to Lee Horn, who now making his way on the inside here versus Gavin Gunn. And these two still battling for position neck and neck in the run through the corners. And Luke Jones behind trying to keep Isaac Doble at bay. And if you are tuning in the YouTube chat right now, you may notice that there's a bot in the chat saying, find yourself a hot girl here. You don't need to, ladies and gentlemen. All the hot actions on the circuit right now as our drivers continue to battle. And that's what we like to see in the NXTCC as Lee Horn tries to hold his outside line versus Gavin Garner here. He's going to do it, I think, but Gavin Garner's got the better run on the exit of A1, and as they make the way to the timeline here, not many more laps remaining as they cross the line. 4 more for these drivers, and look here at Luke Jones, who goes to make it 3 wide into turn 1. This is the battle for P21 overall. Gavin Garner backs out, Lee Horn holds the outside in the natural line, and Luke Jones there loses all the momentum being on such a tight line behind Fernando Colbe, Paul Scott, and also when it's Alan McCain battling 3 wide for P24, P11 in the prime class here. The 3 drives all pro-ams, and further up the road we've got even more battling happening, but we focus here at the moment on the 3 wide that's building, albeit Colby on the outside of Alan McCain. McCain really having to dig in here to hold the position. He gets it done, and Paul Scott looks at the return. We'll come back to them shortly, as meanwhile we look to Adam Delmont coming up the inside here over what is Reese Watt as he gets the move done for P13 for the time being, and then we look back to Manners here, who still finds himself battling with Matthew Addy, and also is that Doble? I believe that's Joseph Doble there, as they almost go 3 wide through 4, and as they come into 5, Joseph Doble does try to make it 3 wide on the outside, but then cuts back. Addy goes deep as a result, and Matthew Addy here really in a tooth and nail fight for P4 in the prime class with Ian Maz, and now as they emerge from turn 6 into 7, then 3 wide from P1, you can see Rob McGregor coming up through as well. It's the battle of the 4 primes here, almost 4 wide coming out of turn number 7, but they go 2 by 2 as they head into Jochen Rindt corner at 8, and as they make their way through, Rob McGregor picks up 3 places in all the chaos as they come down through turn number 9. My goodness, well, the HSR driver could not have timed that more perfectly. That is some beautiful manoeuvring from Rob McGregor, and that goes to show you why he's so respected in the NXTCC. But as he heads up towards turn number 1 now, he's going to have to hold off the baying pack of cars behind him for another 3 laps. Meanwhile, Reece Watt, who we see here battling for P2 in the Prime class with Jason Morris, he finds himself between a rock and a hard place because he's also got 2 pros that are sandwiching himself and Morris in the form of Adam Delmont in front, and then it is Michael Lees behind as Delmont defends into turn number 2. It's getting very messy here where the classes are intersecting, but they're all racing for overall points just as much as they are class points, so every place matters to an extent. And as they come roaring on down towards turn number 3, well, Reece Watt right now will want to clear Delmont as soon as possible, but can he do so? That is going to be the big question. Meanwhile, further back, Ian Manners on the inside here, and Matthew Addy, and well, he's going to really go for it as Ian Manners goes all in there, he gambles, and Addy's made to have to back out on the exit. He cuts it back in for turn 4. I think Manners has got this because they head onto the anchors now. Notice how Addy has to try and hold it all the way around the outside, but Manners gives him the space, and Matthew Addy, surely he's not going to carry it all the way around the outside. I think he is. He's going to dare to dream to believe that Manners is still there as we see purple lap from our race leader of Callum Reed-Garson at 40.389 as he goes on to lap number 14. But Manners versus Addy here, and Matthew Addy is now a nose ahead into turn number 8, and I think he will get this move done as they come into the braking zone, and Matthew Addy returns to P5 in the Prime class, P16 overall. As Manners is still on his outside here, they come on down and he gets it done. Does he? No, I don't think he gets it done quite yet as they battle their way to the timeline. One more lap after the one they've just got onto. Still plenty of battling to go, and Joseph Doble just sitting behind them here, and I think saying, mind if I get involved as well, gents? They come through turn number 1. We ride on board here with NDA Honda Races, Joseph Doble, and well, he gets the good run out to the corner. He's going to make it 3 wide for a brief moment, but he's being squeezed to the grass there, but there's just enough room. As you see, Addy on his left will be obscured by the timing tower, and then there's going to be Manners ahead. But as we look at the exterior cameras here, you can see that Manners puts it in the middle of the road. Joseph Doble all the way out the inside. It's 3 wide under braking into turn number 2. Joseph Doble makes over the apex curve, then Mark Sykes creeps into the picture as well behind them now, and Ian Manners holds on for the time being. Meanwhile, we look from them back up to Mikey Doble here, running in P3, who is under a bit of pressure from Daniel Holmer behind the Pram leader. But I think Holmer at this point more focused on just staying with Mikey Doble and picking up some lap time rather than trying to push his luck and go for an overall podium here. I think that would be pushing it really far in race number 1, but to be fair, we can't tell the drivers what to do. If he wants to go for it, then by all means go for it as they head down towards turn number 8, and as they make the way on through. Well, there's one more lap after this, and we look to our race leader right now who goes onto the final lap with white flag out, and it is Callum Reed-Garson who crosses that timeline in a very comfortable position and just looking to run this all the way to the finish as he comes on through to do the final lap. Meanwhile, we look from him to Joseph Doble, who falling behind Mark Sykes after a brief off at turn number 6 and 7. I don't think it was off, but he had to slow down given the battling with Matthew Addy, and now Mark Sykes moves up into P7 in the Prime class here as a lot of the battling has started to subside. Although I say that, and when you look to Alan McCain battling with Luke Jones here, and these two have been in a neck and neck battle for quite a few laps as they make their way out the corner. It's the same for Bernardo Colbert and also Paul Scott here. Colbert ahead of Scott in the battle for P13 in the Prime class, but it is really the story of the Primes right now fighting one another hard. But now as soon as I say that, the pros want to go at it as well, as we see Andrew Pike here battling with friend and rival from HSR of what is John Higgins Jr. Higgins Jr. on the inside, the Interimus. He'll look to get the run, but of course Pike in the Sim Racing Collective Alanger, he will have the top end advantage over the Veloster, albeit that Veloster very fast and accelerating up through the gearbox. Its one core strength, beyond being a jack of all trades, master of none, is its ability to build a lot of speed very quickly. And as they make the way into turn number 3, we can see Higgins Jr. there gets it done initially, but Pike on the cutback looks to try and go around the outside into turn number 5. Well, as they make the way on through, we do have to cut away from them because he makes his way through the final corners here, and he's been absolutely infallible despite some early pressure after the battle between Redford and Doble gained weight. It was the case of just all said and done and run to distance, and here he comes on his debut. He is your race winner for race number 1 overall in the Pro class. It is Callum Reed-Garson who takes the win by 7.5 seconds over Will Redford there for Honda Racing, and then it is Mikey Doble P3 behind, and it will be Daniel Holmer who crosses the line there, your prime winner in P4 for Bright Esports, and a deserved win. And then it'll be Gianni Perrone who completes the top 5 ahead of Martin Shirley P6, Sam Smith P7, Jamie Dory P8, John Higgins Jr. P9 as he crossed the line just ahead there of Andrew Pike as they come together across the line. And then Adam Delmont, best of the rest, P11 ahead of Reese Watt P12, Michael Lees P13, and it'll be Jason Morris P14 ahead of Ian Manners, who just hit Matthew Addy to the line. Mark Sykes P17, Joseph Doble P18 there, and then it'll be Gavin Garner and Lee Horn to complete the top 20 with Isaac Doble P21, Luke Jones P22 ahead of Alan McCain. Bernardo Colbate on his debut finished his P24 ahead of Paul Scott. Paul Scott just missing out in the end, and John Higgins Sr. P26 ahead of Trev Anderson, followed by Chris Daines. And then Nigel Stock, P29, Jonathan Collins, P30, Daniel Weston, P31, Davide Favo, P32, and then Philip Bruberg, the last of our finishers on the lead lap, P33, with retirements for Rob McGregor and Bram Clays. But what a fantastic race from start to finish, ladies and gentlemen. And, well, what could we see other than it has really set the tempo for what will be the other 2 races of tonight. Battles up and down the field. We can't catch them all, but superb racing action from all of our drivers. And, well, Daniel Holmer here really pushing hard. A very near miss at one point with some of the pros around him, almost seeing the car go off into the yonder into the gravel coming through the middle section of the circuit. But still, holding on to that P4 overall, which will do him wonders in the overall Drivers' Championship, and also it is a big statement in the Pro Championship that he is here to win and dominate. But will he be able to do so? Given Reese Watt in the end, damage limitation P2, but the biggest shock of them all in the Pro class, Matthew Addy fighting hard for P5 in the end, at one point running P3, but losing out to Jason Morris and Ian Manners, and really that velocity just not working out for Addy here today at the Austrian circuit, at least in this race and qualifying. But we've still got 2 more races to go, and anything can happen. But speaking of anything that can happen, let's take a look at those race results subject to any stewards' inquiries. So after our first race of today, 15 laps in length for round 4 of season 2 of the NXTCC here today at the Red Bull Ring circuit in Austria. Callum Regarton taking the win in the end by 7.5 seconds over Will Redford, and Mikey Doble completing the overall and the pro podium. Daniel Holmer in P4 there for Bright Esports, the winner in the Prime class ahead of Gianni Perrone, with Martin Shirley P6, Sam Smith P7, Jamie Dory P8, John Hayes Jr. P9, having to recover for HSR from outside the top 10, fighting for that P9, and then Andrew Pike completing the top 10 for the Sim Racing Collective. Adam Delmont there, best rest in P11, and special mentions to P12 finisher Reese Watt for JW Motorsport, and also to Jason Morris in P14 for iRacing Esports as they completed the Pro-Am podium. But as we now come on to the individual class classifications here, started off with the pros, Callum Regarton with the win ahead of Will Redford and Mikey Doble. That is your pro podium, with Gianni Perrone in the end finishing P4 for Verano Motorsport in a brilliant drive from the Verano Motorsport driver, but I wonder if he felt as though there was a podium on the cards. Martin Shirley P5, Sam Smith P6, Jamie Dory P7, John Higgins Jr. P8, Andrew Pike P9, and Adam Delmont completing the pro top 10 for Excite Racing in a difficult start to his day ahead of Michael Lees P11. Again, another Excite Racing driver who had a difficult race but will look to bounce back in race number 2. And then Gavin Garner and Chris Daines, the Verano Motorsport pair, with that incident on the opening laps costing them dear, but they've got a lot of pace and they'll be fighting their way through the field in race number 2. We then come on to the Prime class. And we can see here in the Prime class, Daniel Holmer taking the win in the end by 15.5 seconds ahead of Reese Watt for Bright Esports. The JW Motorsport driver Reese Watt having to battle hard for P2, and I think you would argue if he was given a clear run, he could have potentially taken the fight to Holmer. And Jason Morris there, P3 for iRacing Esports, and a great performance for Morris, really seeing his potential shine through here today in race number 1, with Ian Manners P4, the 52 Silver Crest Racing driver, battling hard with Matthew Addy. Addy finishing P5 there ahead of Mark Sykes, Joseph Doble, Lee Horn, Isaac Doble, and Luke Jones completing the top 10, with Alan McCain just missing out on the top 10 there in P11, best of the rest. Bernardo Kobe P12 ahead of Paul Scott, John Higgins Sr., Trev Anderson, Nigel Stott, Jonathan Collins, and Daniel Weston to complete your top 18. And then Davide Favo P19 ahead of Philip Bruberg, with Rob McGregor retiring a lap from the finish, and Bram Clays not able to make it to the grid due to technical issues with the Simtech Racing Audi. But that's how they finish, ladies and gentlemen. And well, now we get ready for our second race of this evening. Race number 2 is coming up shortly. We're going to be about 3 to 4 minutes away from returning to it, ladies and gents. So approximately 9:30, but don't go anywhere, because if you enjoyed race number 1, race number 2 is going to be ever more exciting. We can promise you that. We will be back soon. We'll see you soon. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we are back then in the build-up to race number 2. We've had one race already, and it has been an absolute thriller here at the Red Bull Ring Grand Prix circuit. Battling up and down the field, runaway leaders, battles of the podium, fierce fights for the top 5, and everything in between, which is what we love to see, of course, and we're going to have even more of that shortly, with only 3 minutes to go before we go racing it once again for another 15 laps of racing. Now, you may notice, of course, in race number 1, we had a rolling start for our first race, and that was done as a safety procedure, as I'm to understand it, whereby given the danger of running into turn at number 1 from a standing start, it was given us an opportunity for our drivers just to get used to running into turn at number 1 the first race. But I have had it whispered to me we're going to be having a standing start for the next 2 races, so we're going to be seeing plenty of battling off the line in the run to turn at number 1, and well, that is only going to make things ever more exciting. But every so often we do that in Next Gen Racing, just to make sure that our drivers are able to race in the safest possible manner, of course. None of our drivers do mind the fact that we do take those little precautions. But speaking of precautions here, Alan McCain showing no signs of taking precaution in his hard and fast battling today. And well, to be fair, we're grateful to see the iRacing esports driver going all in with regards to the battling in the Pro-Am class, and plenty of drivers out there really looking to have great fights as they made the way around the opening 15 laps in anger. As we get ready for another 15 laps of racing action very shortly, we do have another new joiner as of this race coming up, and that is John Burnham. You'll see him, he'll be a privateer in the Pro-Am class, and here is John Burnham, the privateer in the number 4 Audi RS3, another member of the Audi contingent as he heads on down. But whilst we have got 1.5 minutes remaining, we are just going to try and quickly catch up with one of our drivers making their way out on circuit at the moment, and we are going to try and catch a quick word with this man, Sam Smith, as he does briefly join us in the broadcasting room. Sorry to bother you quickly, Sam. Just want to get your thoughts before we go racing for race at number 2. Right in the thick of it in the battles in the Pro class, also battling with the Pro-Ams in race number 1. Enjoy it, or do you feel as though there's a bit more out there?
Yeah, there's definitely a little bit more out there, but I was struggling because I had damage from lap 2 with the incident with Chris Daines and Adam Delmont. So yeah, I had a steering wheel at 10 degrees to the left the whole of that race.
Oh, that was very unfortunate with the damage, but of course, another race, another opportunity. Are we expecting you to be charging through the top 10 in this one?
Yeah, hopefully so, mate. Yeah, definitely. Gonna give it a go anyway.
Well, we look forward to it, Sam, but with that, we'll leave you to it, because I appreciate you pretty coordinated with your teammates at the moment, but we'll see you at the checkered flag.
Excellent. Thanks a lot. See you there. Cheers.
So there, just a quick word from Sam Smith saying there about the damage he had sustained to the car in race number 1 with that contact with Delmont and Chris Daines, and having the steering at 10 degrees all the way through the race. That does not help at all. I can definitely tell you that, ladies and gentlemen, when you're having to manually apply corrective steering and then race around the circuit, but still confidence there from the iRace esports driver, and you can imagine he'll be looking for it. And they're looking very strong today at iRace esports. They have really come to the table, and we've been missing that for the opening 3 rounds. To be fair, not because they haven't been trying, they just had no luck go their way, but the combination of what is McCain, Morris, Smith, and well, their peers all looking strong as we get ready now to head to the grid for race number 2. So they line up as follows then as we get ready to go racing once more. It is Callum Reed-Garton who takes pole position after his runaway win in race number 1. Can he make it 2 out of 2 overall and in the Pro class? He is joined on the front row by Will Redford for NDA Honda Racing, and behind them it'll be Mikey Doble and Daniel Holmer who line up together. The Pro and pole sitter Daniel Holmer there, he'll be looking to make it 2 out of 2 as well from P4. Martin Shirley and Sam Smith there line up 5th and 6th, with Jamie Doria and John Higgins Jr. starting P7 at P8, and then we have Andrew Pike and Adam Delmont line up on that 5th row. Behind them, Reese Watt, P11, the Pro-Am driver, joined for what is P12 by Michael Lees from Excite Racing. We then have on the 7th row, Jason Morris and Ian Manners, the Pro-Am pair, with Matthew Addy and Mark Sykes there, another Pro-Am pairing on what is that 8th row, with Joseph Doble and Gavin Gardner starting in P17, P18, and Lee Horn and Isaac Doble completing the top 20. We then have Luke Jones and Alan McCain behind them. And I believe we are going to have the gridding process complete, ladies and gentlemen, as we get ready to go racing. And we've got the lights. 1 red light, 2 red lights, 3 red lights, 4 red lights, 5 red lights. And it's lights out and away we go here for race number 2 from the standing start this time. And Callum Reed-Garton gets a good launch as they head up towards turn number 1. Into the braking zone they go, and as they make their way on through, can he defend it? He can indeed, as Mikey Doble here tucks in behind Will Redford. No major change there, but what about further back as they all make their way on through the corners? Further back, we have had an incident of some description. I believe we've got a couple of cars going round, or some going very slowly, and I think that is why the HSR cars, that's Higgins Senior, into the barrier on the inside of the exit of 1. But meanwhile, looking up to the front of the field, and you can see that Callum Regards on the outside, and Will Redford goes to the move nice and early. And as they make the way on out here and head down towards turn number 3 into the braking zone, Regarson now under a bit of pressure versus Redford, and Mikey Doble will look to seize upon this as well as they head in towards turn number 3. But as they make the way down, you see already Regarson trying to go around the outside. Can he find it? However, that will be the big question. He's got the momentum here, but he goes a bit deep on cold tyres, and that costs him very dearly. As meanwhile, John Higgins Jr. behind looks to try and make the move here and re-swap, but Watt carrying the momentum around the outside through turn number 3. And as they head up towards turns 4 and 5, it looks as though Reese Watt's not giving in just yet as there's contact with Higgins Jr. Higgins Jr. sent sideways here, given a brief tap on the behind by Matthew Addy, and that helps straighten the car around, but it's drama there for Reese Watt and Higgins Jr. And now, well, it becomes the Concertina effect here as we've got a driver off, and that is Matthew Addy going straight off and making his way to the escape road, but Matthew Addy in a nightmare start as they head on through towards turn number 8, and Ian Mannersdale looking to go round the outside of Reese Watt here. Can he get it done as Watt tries to hold position? Joseph Doble as well looks to try and mimic Manners as they make the way into turn number 9. He can't find it, however, and has to back out as they make the way onto lap number 2. And in fact, we have to take credit to there are 14 laps, not 15 here as they head down towards turn number 1. But as they make the way on through, we look from them to a bit of a behind, and we can see here Jason Morris and Luke Jones side by side in the run up towards turn number 1. Onto the brakes they go, and well, there's a mistake there. I think it was just a mistake for John Higgins Jr. who goes sideways under braking, and well, he's going to have to jump to the pits there because that is his race in tatters. As meanwhile, we can see a bit further behind Davide Farlow here in a freeway fight with the Elanchas of Philip Bruberg and Colby. You can see the CSA race and Audi really having to dig deep here versus the pair as they make the way up the hill, and he's not giving this to South African. He wants these places. Meanwhile, Philip Bruberg looks up the inside under braking. Little tap on the rear, and Colby goes deep as a result. But we look from them all the way out to the front of the field, and Mikey Doble here up the inside of what is their Callum Regards, and as they make the way out of turn number 3, he'll cut back to the inside line for turn number 5 now outside of 4. Mikey Doble here really now trying to get his A game on as we see, oh goodness me, Redford loses the rear, and Redford goes to the gravel. He just about catches the car in time before it's pulled all the way off, and now he drops to P4, but Mikey Doble takes the lead of this race for the first time today. And as they make the way through 6 and 7, you can see the top 4 breaking away as Jamie Dory meanwhile almost making haste to the gravel as they came through turn number 7, and Adam Delmont round the outside. Well, Delmont having a difficult start to this evening, that's certain, but now as they make the way on through and into turn number 8, looks like Jamie Dory with that one error has cost himself dear as Delmont really trying to fly high. But as it comes to the end of lap number 2, let's take you through that top 10 as it currently stands. It is Mikey Doble who leads ahead of Callum Regarton, who looks to the move once again. Daniel Holmer, the prime leader in P3 behind them, staying in formation as Will Redford hangs on in P4 behind. Adam Delmont in P5, followed by Jamie Dory P6, who in turn has got Andrew. Oh goodness, but they're all sliding into turn number 1. What on earth has happened there? I don't think there's any oil spilled into turn number 1, but it does look as though our drivers are really struggling for tyre and brake temperature as we've got a free wide here in the run up the hill. It's Andrew Pike in the middle of the road trying to part the seats like Moses. He does so successfully as we want Martin Shirley on the inside there, tucking in versus Jamie Dory. There's a beef tap there from Michael Lee, who battles with Sam Smith, and as they come out the right hander, Shirley and Smith both losing 3 places since the start of this race. But both with the fire inside them to fight on as Andrew Pike here tries to look for the move on Adam Delmont, and the pros are really turning it up a notch. They make the way down towards turn 3 on the brakes. The Sim Racing Collective driver goes off Pike on the inside. Excite races. Delmont is not going to give in. He'll make sure he's got his nose ahead coming through turn 3, so he's got the right to the outside line that takes him to the inside of 5, and I think Delmont may have got this done as meanwhile Martin Shirley behind battling with their Wood is Sam Smith as we ride on board with the SimTech Racing driver. He tucks in here and looks at the move. He can't quite find it as they make the way into turn number 6 once more. But as they come on through here with Michael Leach just behind, it's the case that he has to think about, does he battle hard and potentially lose places to the driver behind, or does he settle down for now and try to put pressure on and look to get Smith to make a mistake? Well, I think he's got to go for the pressure here, because if he dares make one move, it could see him fall backwards into the fight with Lisa Manners, who are hanging on right behind him as they make their way down into the end of this lap through A1 corner. But as they come through the right hander here, we've got plenty going on. further back as John Burnham's into the pit lane, and we look to Paul Scott, who looks to try and fight his way into P25 versus Philip Bruberg here. Philip Bruberg, a lot of damage on the car, you'll notice, a lot of scratches on the rear paintwork. Definitely have a few elbows out moments early on in this race. And Paul Scott now trying to make it count as he comes out of the final corner and heads up towards turn number 1. It's going to battle the Audi on the inside, the Elantra on the right, the Honda on the right, and as they make the way in towards the braking zone, Paul Scott will get this done, but of course he's running on a compromised line. Meanwhile, speaking of uncompromising, will Luke Jones here battling once again with Jason Morris, albeit these guys both out of position compared to where they finished in race number 1, having fallen quite a way back, as Morris in particular, and Luke Jones has gained a few places. He's going to gain another one as he makes the move up the inside of Jason Morris, and he makes it stick there on the exit of turn number 2. Meanwhile, further up the road, we look to this battle for what is just to be inside the top 10 overall. It's 3-1 on the braking. Manners in the middle, Lease on the inside, Sam Smith on the outside, and Michael Lease there finds the door, and he just puts his foot right in it and says, don't mind if I do, and the Excite Racing driver absolutely nails the pass. Meanwhile, Ian Manners here now fighting with Reese Watt. Reese Watt moments ago making his way past Ian Manners on the exit 3, and Manners, I think, absolutely shell-shocked with regards to that move being made. I don't think the 52-cylinder Crest Racing driver saw that coming from Lease, and it just simply has turned the tables as they make the way up towards turn number 8 once again. Isaac Doble just behind as well, and Doble looking to get into the fight as they roll their way through the right-hander of Jochen Rindt and down into A1. You see all the drivers there right on the ragged edge of grip as they make the way through turn number 9. But meanwhile, as we look from them all the way up to our race leaders, here's Callum Reed-Garton leading the way, purple lap set of 40.568. He's still got Mikey Doble behind by 4 attempts, but Callum Reed-Garton is leading this race and is looking to try and keep Doble at arm's length. But can he do so, given that Doble is absolutely hooked now as they make the way up in towards turn number 2? And that's the thing with Mikey Doble, when he sees competition, he doesn't back off of it. It only motivates him more as they make the way out of turn at number 2. And we ride on board the gearbox here, or the privateer of Callum Reed-Garton from Save IT Sports as he makes his way down towards turn number 3. Now you'll notice here just how the Elantra able to pull so much time on the straight by comparison with Doble. The Honda, of course, as we said time and time again, the weaker car in the top end speed on the straights, plus 75 kilograms. That does not help with regards to the straight line acceleration. And instead, I think Doble's got to worry about Holmer and also Redford behind as they make the way into turn number 5. But as they come through, we look here further back inside the top 10 for the battle for P7. That is Martin Shirley at the head of it. In fact, that's the battle, my apologies, it's the battle for P9 overall, P7 in the Pro class, with Joseph Doble just ahead of them in P8 overall. Ian Manners up the inside there, Reese Watt we just saw for a brief moment. He gets the move done back for P3 in the Prime class, P11 overall. The Primes are battling hard here for the final spot on the podium, and well, for Ian Manners and Reese Watt, these are critical points, and Reese Watt in particular, because given Daniel Holmer's apparent dominance right now, Reese Watt's going to want to finish P2 as a minimum in every race, so as close as possible as he can. But meanwhile, the battle, the velocities here, Martin Shirley goes out the outside. It's a brief tap between Shirley and Lease. Lease comes in hot. They make further touches. They come out the corner, but Lease there comes off the worst of the two. And I think Martin Shirley would argue, well, look, I was just down the outside. You went for it. And as they make the way up to speed, Shirley gains. Meanwhile, Lease lose out massively as they head up towards the braking zone for turn 1 once again. And Isaac Doble down the inside of the Excite Racing driver as they come through the right-hander and make the way up towards turn 2 now. And you can definitely see how behind. Well, look at that, Gavin Gardner right on the back of this group. They are all pushing as much as they can, and Garner really trying to thread his way into the mix, and he is one of a limited number of pros in amongst this pro-am battling as they make the way under braking. Martin Shirley now having to hold off Ian Manners as they make the way through turn number 2, and behind Michael Lease here, well, the Excite Racing driver not giving in. He is trying to push on as much as he can, but I think he feels a little bit frustrated the fact he's no longer battling the pro driver of Shirley. Instead, he is battling with the primes around him, which is not what he wants right now. As meanwhile, a bit further back, there's Alan McCain in the iRacing Esports Elantra side by side there with Gavin Gardner as they come through turn number 3, and as they make the way out of the corner, McCain absolutely flying at start. He's gained 7 places from P22 on the grid, now making his way into turn number 5 and doing everything in his power to stay close. As we see the comment there from Mark Redford in the YouTube chat saying a decent drive in the Honda, and it does have the pace, and indeed it just goes to show with Callum Reed-Garton flying high at the front of the field, and also the Elantra's really coming on strong in the mid-pack here We are really seeing the ballast and the balance of performance all coming together to create close-knit racing. But as they make their way into turn number 8, Lee Horn also tagging onto the back of this group right now. As you see there in our top 4 have just crossed the timeline. Your timing tower, 3 out of 4 of them setting personal best, and Doble slightly faster than Callum Garth that last time around as we reach the halfway point of this race. Still plenty of laps to be turned, however, and you can see in the long run here as we ride on board with Lee Horn, looking in front of him at what is a group of 9 cars all battling for position. Lee Horn's in P17 to keep you in context here, and right at the front of that pack is P8 in the form of Joseph Doble, and Lee Horn gets the better run off of the opening corner in the Civic Type R. But in return now we see the Audi RS3 of Gavin Garner gain pace, gain momentum, and this is where it gets so tricky because Horn doesn't want to battle too hard, because if he battles it hard he'll lose the hunt of the pack in front, and Gardner knows as well as there's contact between the two of them. They touch into turn number 2, and now Mark Sykes tries to get in as well, as does Luke Jones behind, and Jason Morris. They're all catching up here, and now we suddenly have P20 through to what is P8, separated by only 6 seconds on circuit. It's so tight as they make their way down towards turn number 3. Meanwhile, a little bit further behind them, Jonathan Collins here, not to be forgotten, out battling with Colbert as they make their way in towards turn 3 themselves. You can see tucked in behind at the moment, separated by 10. He looks up the inside here. And these two have been scrambling for P25 for some time. When it's P14 for them in the Pro-Am class, and Collins there up the inside gets the move done, but I wouldn't be surprised if Colway tries to come back in a couple of laps time. Meanwhile, we look from them all the way out to Andrew Pike here, who running in P6 overall, P5 in the Pro class, has behind him Jamie Dury, has in front of him Adam Delmont, and the trio here are all within equal pace of one another in what is the 2 Honda sandwich in the Elantra as they come out of the final corner. Fastest lap goes the way of Callum Regatta now, 39.971, only 100th or 12,000, so you want to be precise, faster than Mikey Doble on that lap. So the top 2 are exchanging lap times as they're trading stocks on the stock exchange. But meanwhile, we're hearing that John Burnham's had to jump to the pits due to an issue with the car. I believe he went off track. Meanwhile, Paul Scott here in the battle of the Audis for P22 versus Davide Faro, the CSA Racing Team driver there on the outside. Paul Scott on the inside of NXTGEN Racing Blue. It's not normally the way to go on the inside into turn 1. You lose the run into 2, but he gets the CSA driver to make an error there. But I think Faro's going to carry the momentum. And I wonder if there might be a slowdown coming as we see Nigel Stott there going a little bit slow in the run up towards turn number 2. I wonder if he's going to slow down as well. As you can see, Paul Scott with a flash of the lights there. I'm not sure if that is for stock or whether it's for Faro, whether he thinks he's on camera, but they almost go 3 wide into turn number 2. Stott goes very deep, as does Faro. And you can see Chris Daines here, who's not really come through the field at all. He's had a difficult start to this race and is only now starting to gain a bit of impetus. I think there might have been a few knocks as well. We can see Daines now trying to pick his way on past the Proams here, up the inside of Paul Scott. He's going to go for it on the brakes, and I think this is going to be a straightforward move as he's got the leverage on the brakes of the Honda and he makes it count. But meanwhile, we look from them up to Will Redford here, who has got Daniel Holmer for company behind as they come down through turn number 8. And we've had clarity there from John Burnham in the YouTube chat saying, having some unexpected issues with my screen going blank. I'm sorry to hear that, John. Hopefully you can get those resolved for race number 3, because we're all the merrier for having you out at the circuit. But I'm sorry to hear about the technical issues. But all of our drivers elsewhere on the circuit will be hoping there's no technical issues for them right now, given their positions and the battling. As we've seen Will Redford here trying to hold off Daniel Holmer, the Pro-Am leader behind him, who right now putting on some pressure and looking for that overall podium. It'll be his first in this series. But meanwhile, further behind here, battling in the run up towards turn number 1, well, not really battling for manners. He's had to lift off due to a slowdown, but Reese Watt there tucks him behind. I think Reese Watt was thinking about a potential move, but then decides you don't want to play it safe and just tuck in and run the straight. And as they make the way up towards turn number 2, Reese Watt now again in the long line of cars, as you can see them there, making their way all the way up towards turn number 2. No change in terms of drivers breaking away, but you can see a bit further back there, Mark Sykes looking for the move on Sam Smith here, trying to fight his way with the Pro Driver, and Sam Smith dropping a long way down after an off track. And in fact, we can catch exactly what happened. Well, this was only moments ago versus Gavin Gardner, and I think there might have been a bit of contact on the... No, there wasn't contact. If there was, it did not look as though it was path changing. I think Sam Smith, they're just getting hooked on what was the gravel on the exit of turn number 3, and as a result then having to really yield and tuck in behind what was Lee Horn there. But Sam Smith, an uncharacteristic error coming out of Gessler corner, and as a result losing out dearly. And now Mark Sykes salivating, trying to make the move on him all through at turns 5 and 6. But as we look to these live pictures here. We have still got 5 laps to go when they get on to the next one. Indeed, we look to the leaders here. 5 laps remaining now as Callum Regarton comes to the timeline. It's gone to lap number 10. Of course, 14 laps of racing it as per our Richie build. 15 laps only for race number 1 with that rolling start. And Regarton now doing everything in his power to hold off Mikey Doble, but Doble showing no signs of slowing down, staying right there with him. And of course, these two will be guaranteed, presuming they finish where they are, they will be guaranteed for the reverse grid. Remember that whilst we do normally draw from 6th through to 12th, it can only be from 7th through to 12th today because P6 was selected last time out of the hat, and that means now P7 is the place to be, and that's Jamie Dory right now has P7. But meanwhile, Mark Sykes on the inside there. Oh, that Jason Morris, the same for Luke Jones, the same for, in fact, that's Sam Smith going slow. My apologies. Sam Smith going slow and to the final corners, and as they make the way up towards turn 1, the 3 primes all picking the way on through, and now Jason Morris looking for the move around the outside here of Jones. They heading towards the braking zone for turn number 2. Who's going to come off stronger here? Well, you'd imagine that Jones is going to give it everything he can, but he's been compressed there to the apex. That means that Morris there will have all the run in the run down towards turn number 3, but you notice how Mark Sykes gifting a little bit more toe to what is Jones. I think he wants the Honda driver there to battle with Morris, so that way he's able to have a little bit more breathing room, but Morris gets it done in the end. But further up the road, Reese, oh goodness me, and what on earth has happened here? We've got Reese Watt and Alan McCain both off circuit, and we can take a look back. Well, this was only moments to go for Reese Watt, and McCain behind him. Was there contact between the two drivers? Oh, goodness me, there was a McCain coming in like a missile down to brake and missed his braking point by about 25 metres and tapping the rear of Watt. But in the end, they've been able to survive it. But I think for McCain, it's one of those moments that he wishes never happened because he's lost out quite dearly as we return to those live pictures now. But as we look further up the road, Jamie Dory really the man, well in fact not Jamie Dory anymore, it's Andrew Pike is the man to beat because he will be P7 if things finish as they are. And as they make the way up towards turn number 1, the thing for Andrew Pike is he will be looking to finish here and no lower down the order to guarantee that he will be in that reverse grid draw. But as they make the way up towards turn number 2, you can see how Dory now trying to press on after Adam Delmont. Of course, friends and rivals between NXTGEN Racing, or in fact NDA Honda Racing we should say, and Excite Racers. They make the way up towards turn number 2, and the Sim Racing Collective driver of Pike here staying within earshot of it as well, given that the Honda's tyres will be starting to wear down significantly at this point, and the Hondas will therefore start to fall back into the clutches or fall further away from the likes of the Elantra and also the Veloster and the RS3 to a lesser extent. But it does look as though the Elantra here today is the car that really is flying high and giving the Honda a run for its money, as meanwhile Ian Manners a little bit further back here in the Veloster enjoying racing with Isaac Doble and looking around the outside here. This is the battle for P3 in the Prime class, and Doble is holding on to that P3 with Ian Manners trying to move up from P4, and the 52 Silver Crest Racing driver trying all manner of cutback there, coming out to 3 into 4. He finds the run on the inside to turn 4. That takes him up to turn 5 on the outside, but you'll notice how he backs out there quite early. He's trying now to get Isaac Doble to go deep, but Isaac Doble is showing no signs of making that mistake. He is keeping it calm, collected, and making sure to be as stubborn as a mule in terms of defending as they make the way through turns 6 and 7. Further back, meanwhile, Jason Morris here all over the back of Mark Sykes as they head out to turn 6 and 7. Luke Jones also looking for the prospects to be right on board here with the JW Motorsport driver. He takes a peek to the inside here into Jochen Ring corner, but I don't think he's going to be going from that far back, so I think if he does, that's going to be licking the stamp and sending it from a long distance as they make the way out of 8. But you can see then Morris gets a poor run on the exit of turn 8, but the problem for Jones is if he were to make the move into 9, he'd have to lunge it on the inside and compromise his exit and give Sykes the run away. But you can see there now Morris defending here as he's lost the run on Sykes. He's worried about Jones. Jones is going to have to look for the cutback here out of 1. He wants Morris to lose the run out the corner, but Morris will try and park it on apex. Jones delays his turn in there to give himself all the run out the corner, and now Morris defends as they drag race their way up towards turn number 2. But again, as we start to make our way into 5th gear, notice the Elantra is equalising on speed. Jones there is going to be side by side under braking, but is it enough? We see them there side by side into the corner. There's contact between the two, and Luke Jones is given a a bit of the elbow there. As you can see, Morris now finds himself on the inside line, not able to carry the momentum of the corner, and I think Luke Jones may have it done, or does he, as Morris will once again be gifted the opportunity of having the straight line speed advantage as they head on down to the braking zone. Jones on the right, Morris on the left of your picture. Morris outbreaks Jones, and as they come through, gets the corner, contact between the two of them now, and Luke Jones is passed, but this is bringing Alan McCain and also Sam Smith. It's the full iRace Esports contingent. They're all coming into play as they make their way into turn number 5, and McCain tries to get his nose in the inside of Jones coming into turn 5, but Jones sees it's coming and shuts the door firm as they make their way into turn number 6. Meanwhile, further up the road, Joseph Doble running P2 in the Prime class. What is P8 overall? Now battling with Martin Shirley here for overall position as the Pro driver tucks in behind. And Joseph Doble here showing he's not just about Daniel Holmer in the Prime class, taking the fight to the pros. And well, the NBA Honda Racing driver enjoying one of his strongest performances of this season in this race as they head up the hill towards turn number 1. But Shirley's going to be on the inside here. There'll be a battle on the brakes. I think Doble will be wise to cut back in, but he doesn't get it turned in time and has to run out wide instead. And that's going to cost him a bit of momentum and cost him the slipstream. Meanwhile, the battle of the two Hondas further up the road into turn number 2. It's Delmont on the inside, Dory on the outside. They're battling for P4 in the Pro class, P5 on circuit. And Adam Delmont gets the better entry into turn number 2, but on exit it's going to be that outside line that offers greater grip, and Jamie Dory exploiting it as they make the way on down. But heading in towards turn number 3 here, Adam Delmont's not going to back out, I don't think, given that if he backs out he'll fall back into clutches of Pike immediately, and Delmont goes all in on the brakes. Dory gives them the space, and Pike looks at this behind and is trying to find a way in. It's still side by side here between Delmont and Dory as they head up towards turn number 5. Dory now on the inside here, and I think he'll have this covered off for now as they come through the left hand. You can see Pike looking to try and cut him behind Dory here on quarter exit, but he's not close enough to do so, and Delmont covers off Pike as they make the way into turn number 6. But as they come down and around, we look from them to what is our race leader, Callum Regarton, who comes through the final corner here to go on to the final lap of race number 2, and the gap to Mikey Doble now standing at 1.4 seconds as they cross the timeline, charging up the hill once again in front of a packed grandstand as they head into the braking zone. But I think Callum Regarton has broken the momentum of Doble in this second race as Doble sets a personal best of 39.816, but it's still 3/10 slower than Callum Regarton's lap of 39.51, albeit that was with an off track for Callum Regarton, so it won't count as the fastest lap. But meanwhile, Dory versus Delmont continues as we return to that battle for P5 overall, and you can see Pike here trying to hedge his bets behind the driver who's going to give him the best possible opportunity to make the move on the pair of them as they head up the hill. And Pike stays close here to Dory for the time being, but as they head into the braking zone here, Delmont has the inside line. Can he make it work under braking? Well, I think Dory's going to try and go all the way around the houses. Delmont finds himself on that curbing, and as a result can't get the power down, and as they make the way up towards turn number 3, well, Pike now has an opportunity here. If he can try and get a little bit closer, he may be able to consider a 3 wide, but I don't think he's actually going to have that as he's made to go on the outside. He has to cut back around. He's got to look for the move on Delmont, but Delmont here sees it coming, and the Sim Racing Collector tries made to go a little bit wider there, and I think he fathomed he would as they make the way out of 3 and up towards 5. But in the charge here, they line up once again. Meanwhile, further back, Alan McCain, well, at the head of the iRace Esports contingent as they head into the braking zone here behind Luke Jones, who has just not given in at all. We have to look from them to our race leader, for as he comes into the final corner here, he was under pressure early on. He held off and withstood the pressure from Mikey Doble and Will Redford. And as he comes to the line, he makes it 2 out of 2 here at the Red Bull Ring. Callum Regarton, the privateer, is your winner ahead of Mikey Doble P2. And then Will Redford will complete the overall podium ahead of prime winner Daniel Holmer P4 there for Bright Esports. It'll then be Jamie Dory who holds off Adam Delmont to the line, and Andrew Pike in P7 behind them, followed by Joseph Doble, who crosses P8, P2 in the Prime class ahead of Martin Shirley and Michael Lees to complete the top 10. And it'll be Isaac Doble who takes 3rd place on the Prime podium, P11 overall ahead of Ian Manners, Gavin Garner P13, and then Lee Horn just ahead of Reese Watt there in the run to P15. Mark Sykes P16, Luke Jones P17 ahead of Alan McCain and Jason Morris, with Sam Smith completing the top 20. Chris Daines in the end recovering to P21, but feeling as though I think there was more out there. Then Paul Scott P22, Nigel Stott P23, Davide Favo P24, Jonathan Collins, P25, in a great battle between him and Fernando Colbe, which we caught parts of, and holding it off to the line. Daniel Weston, P27, Matthew Addy, P28, then a difficult race number 2 for the Prime Championship leader, and then Trev Anderson, P29, ahead of Philip Bruberg, who will shortly come on through to complete his race number 2, the last of our finishers on the lead lap, as he makes his way on around there to cross the timeline. And then we did have finishing a lap down John Higgins Sr. and also the retirements of John Burnham and John Higgins Jr. 33 starters, 31 finishers, and what a fantastic second race it has been. One filled with drama and battling up and down the field, and again the battling not just this time localised to the midfield and the upper echelons of the Prime class, but also right at the tip of the spear in the Pro class, but also that fight for P4, P5 in the Prime class between Jamie Doria, Adam Delmont and Andrew Pike. You can imagine there's going to be a lot to play for, and there's a lot riding on for our drivers in terms of that reverse grid draw that will be coming up shortly. But fantastic fighting action, and the Red Bull Ring really delivering here as we anticipated it would, and the iRacing esports drivers of Morris, McCain and Smith, I think, feeling as though race number 3 is where they'll need to bounce back. But as we look to our scenic view here, let's take you through those race results very shortly, ladies and gents. We are waiting for the results to come on through, and that will be for this race number 2. They're not currently available, but they will be in short order. But as we just wait for those, we had to reflect on the fact that really race number 2 has carried on from where race number 1 left off. And, well, let's not leave off those race results. And here they are. So after another 14 laps of racing action here at the Red Bull Ring in race 2 of round 4 of the NXTCC Season 2, Callum Regarton taking the overall win, this time by a much smaller margin of 1.6 seconds over Mikey Doble and Will Redford completing the overall podium. Daniel Holmer, your Pro-Am winner in P4 overall, the Bright Esports driver continuing on from race number 1 in that dominant form, with Jamie Dory at P5, Adam Delmont P6, holding off Andrew Pike to the end there in P7, and then Joseph Doble P8, second place in the Prime class for NDA Honda Racing, ahead of Martin Shirley and Michael Lees to complete the top 10, and then Isaac Doble best of the rest there, P11, Pro-Am P3, and 2 members of the Doble family on the Pro-Am podium. They'll be pleased, but they'll be wondering how they can potentially upset the run of Daniel Holmer. Well, I think Daniel Holmer's going to be hard to touch. It's 2 out of 2. Can he make it 3 out of 3? Then we see Ian Manners, Gavin Garner, Lee Horn, Reese Watt, Mark Sykes, Luke Jones and Alan McCain completing the run to P18. But as we then come on to the individual classes now, we see here firstly in the Pro class, Callum Regarton taking the win in the end ahead of Mikey Doble and Will Redford completing the Pro podium, with Jamie Dory at P4, Adam Delmont P5 and Andrew Pike P6. Martin Shirley at P7 there ahead of Michael Lees. Both drivers close together at the finish. I think they both feel as though they could be inside that top 5 with happier races, but still have got one more race to turn that around. Gavin Garner P9, Sam Smith P10, Chris Daines P11, and then John Higgins Jr. finishing a lap down at P12, the last of our pros. And then we come onto the Pro-Am class, and we can see here your race winner of Daniel Holmer by 18.2 seconds over Joseph Doble and Isaac Doble, and well, the Doble pairing there completing the podium, and I think the Doble family is definitely going to have a big smile on its collective face come the end of tonight, with Ian at Manners P4 ahead of Lee Horn P5. Reese Watt then not quite able to finish inside the top 5, but chasing down Lee Horn to the very end. Expect plenty more for the JW Motorsport driver in race number 3. And then Mark Sykes P7 ahead of Luke Jones, Alan McCain and Jason Morris, who complete the top 10. With Paul Scott best rest in P11 ahead of Nigel Stock, not quite able to take the fight to Paul Scott in the end. With Davide Favo fighting to P13 ahead of Jonathan Collins, who held off Bernardo Colbe to P14. And then Daniel Weston in P16 behind Colbe, with Matthew Addy P17 at Trev Anderson P18. And well, not too far behind Trev Anderson, Philip Bruberg with John Higgins Sr. finishing a lap down, and John Burnham there with that retirement early on in the race due to technical issues. But that's how they finished, ladies and gentlemen, in what was race number 2. And well, we have got one more race to come very shortly, and that will be sprint race number 3. But before we transition over to that race, of course, it is time for us to do the reverse grid draw. So as we cut to the commentary booth here, ladies and gentlemen, we have a new feature in the reverse grid draw booth. You'll remember, of course, that we have previously been doing our draw with the lottery dish or the breakfast dish with the sticky notes. Well, I'm pleased to say they're all gone. And the dish is out the window because courtesy of Sam Cases, and particularly the team as led by Matthew Addy, we now have the official Next Gen Racing Lottery Bowl. Or, well, indeed, with our lottery balls in there as well. And thank you to Sam Cases. If you're looking for sturdy flight cases, or indeed industrial cases to look after your belongings, whether you're going on work trips or leisure trips, do definitely check out samcases.co.uk for the simple reason they have some of the very best cases in the market, and they'll make sure that all your produce and goods do not feel any damage whatsoever when making long distance transits. But thank you to Sam Cases and Matthew Addy once again for putting together this wonderful lottery bowl. And well, without further ado, of course, the number 6, just to prove to everybody, the number 6 is here on this ball. It is not in the lottery bowl. So as a result, we've got 7 through to 12. I'm going to close my eyes, shuffle the balls, and then draw one out of the bowl. Okay, and we go for the draw. And our number is number 12. We have a full reversed grid, and that will mean that Ian Manners will be your pole sitter for race number 3. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we will be back for race number 3 in approximately 4 to 5 minutes' time. We'll see you shortly. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we are back then for the build-up to our final race of today in round 4 of the NXTCC Season 2 here at the Red Bull Ring on iRacing. And what two brilliant races we have had so far. Race 1 really set the bar high in terms of battling action up and down the field, but Race 2 has taken it even further. But they have been two constants all the way through, and that is we have had back-to-back winners. In the Pro class, it has been debutant Callum Reed-Garton. In the Prime class, it has been Daniel Holmer, who's continuing his win streak next into 5 wins on the bounce. And can both drivers potentially make it a triple set of wins here today? I think they could possibly, given the advantages they've been shown. But you can be certain that in the Pro class, Mikey Doble and also Will Redford will be doing everything in their power to stop the dominance of Callum Reed-Garton. And in the Prime class, I wouldn't be surprised if the Doble pairing of Isaac and Joseph Doble, if they see a potential drop from Daniel Holmer, they'll look to pounce on it immediately. And with a top 12 reverse grid, as from our lottery bolt only moments ago, the maximum possible number, that means that we are going to be seeing a huge number of drivers turned on around, and we'll have Ian Manners starting from pole position, and indeed a number of prime drivers starting at the very front. That's only certain to cause even more delight and drama throughout the racing. But as we get ready to go racing one more time, we look to Ian Manners here making his way on around and down towards turn number 6 right now. And well, the 52 Silver Crest Racing driver, he's going to find himself in a unique position soon. One of a limited number of drivers to have taken that reverse grid pole so far this season. And with 2 minutes to go here, I can imagine he'll be getting his head down right now and getting himself all the psychological motivation he can, because the pressure will be on. But just another quick special mention to Sam Cases and their website, samcases.co.uk, for manufacturing the NXTGEN Racing Lottery Globe and Lottery Balls, in that they are one of the leading flight case manufacturers, supplying clients such as the BBC, Dyson, Chelsea Football Club, LG Electronics and the Ministry of Defence of the United Kingdom, as well as a number of other organisations. And well, if you're looking for flight cases, then they're the #1 place to go to. And indeed, if you're looking for any other items to be manufactured, such as lottery bowls as well. But thank you to Sam Case and particularly to Matthew Addy for what is a new feature on our broadcast going forward. But as we see here, Mikey Doble making his way down towards turn number 3 at the moment. He'll be looking at today and thinking that whilst he hasn't been picking up the wins, he's been picking up the P2s, and that's what it's all about. Of course, when you can't win, make sure to pick up the best possible results. And of course, he's finished ahead still of main rivals Will Redford and Adam Delmont, and that is the key factor for him as he makes his way on around here in the final practice session with only a minute to go and run his way on through. We're not going to try and jump in with any of our drivers now, ladies and gentlemen. We're just going to give them the breathing room here, because of course the mental focus will be on getting ready for that final race. We have only got a minute left, but we'll definitely try when we go back into the season after the Christmas break. We will try to get some more between race or pre-race interviews of our drivers for you. So we know that you guys and girls love them, but it's also finding the time to squeeze them in, as we do see here the Hyundai Honda Racing driver getting set, and indeed Michael Lease as well and Adam Delmont together here as they make their way up towards turn number 1. The 2 Excite Racing drivers with mixed fortunes. Michael Lease definitely having very mixed fortunes over races 1 and 2. Meanwhile, Adam Delmont continuing to fly high here, and the Excite Racing driver deservedly running inside the top 5 in the Pro and the overall championships at the moment. And can he continue that form into the Christmas break? My gut feeling says yes, he can, because he's been pushing very hard. But will he be able to end the racing today on a high? We're about to find out, ladies and gents. We are for all of our drivers as they get themselves set now. With 10 minutes complete, it is time for us to head to the grid for race number 3. So as we transition over to the grid then, let's take you through how they line up for the final time this evening. On pole then, it will be Ian Manners, prime pole and overall pole for 52 Silver Crest Race with a reverse grid pole, joined by Isaac Doble for NXTGEN Racing Yellow. And the primes have behind them the pro pair of Michael Lease and Martin Shirley from Excite Racing and SimTech Racing respectively, with Joseph Doble and Andrew Pike starting on the 3rd row. And there's Adam Delmont and Jamie Dory on the 4th row, ahead of Daniel Holmer and Will Redford to complete the top 10, with Mikey Doble and Callum Reed-Garton, the top 2 finishers last time out, starting on the 6th row. Behind them on row 7, Gavin Gardner and Lee Horn, followed up by on row 8, Reese Watt and Mark Sykes, and it is Luke Jones and Alan McCain on the 9th row, with Jason Morris and Sam Smith on the 10th row. Chris Daines and Paul Scott P21, P22, with Nigel Stock and Davide Favo behind. Now on row 13, it is Jonathan Collins and Bernardo Colbe, with Daniel Weston and Matthew Addy on the 14th row, Philip Bruberg and John Higgins Senior on the 15th row, and then it will be behind them, or in fact no more, there are 30 drivers and attenders. It's time for us to go racing, ladies and gentlemen. We await the lights. One red light, two red lights, three red lights, four red lights, five red lights. And it's lights out, and away we go then for our final race of today on the grid start. And Ian Manners looks to get a good start, but it's a slow one off the line. Isaac Doble looks up the inside immediately here with a better launch as they come into turn one. And look at Martin Shirley as well, up the inside immediately as Isaac Doble takes the lead in this race. They've all come on through here in the medley, but everyone seems to have survived it just about. Philip Broberg has had to jump to the pits, I believe, due to technical issues in starting the car. The car wouldn't launch off the line, and as they make the way in the run up towards turn number 2 here, Ian Manners battling back around the outside of Isaac Doble, who holds on the inside here behind Martin Shirley, defends versus Joseph Doble. You see Adam Delmont as well having a fantastic start, 2 places gained. He's trying to make the move on Andrew Pike, who comes back around the outside of him here as they now head down towards turn number 3. But right now it is 2 by 2 all the way back to P15 as they come into the braking zone here. Bit of a mistake further back. We've got Matthew Addy off circuit somewhere further down. I think he's had a spin coming out to turn number 2. We'll try and find out what exactly has happened to Matthew Addy shortly, but you can see here in the concertina effect how Mikey Doble and Michael Lee's coming together, and Doble with a slow start. Callum Garton gaining 3 places by comparison, and Mikey Doble here just playing it calm and collected. And I think waiting to see whether anybody has an off on this opening lap. But Callum Garton right now really trying to push the tempo here as he hangs on the inside here, making it 3 wide into turn number 6 there versus what is Michael Lees and also Jamie Dory, and he gets it done there as Callum Garton does is he's side by side with Dory in the run up towards turn number 8, and as they come in towards the braking zone, well, Dory here holds the inside line, but I think Callum Garton's going to have all the momentum he needs as Dory takes too much curb. It causes the car to snap loose, but he defends it well, and as they come down, Dory there in a near miss but keeps it together as they bring it to the end of lap number 1. So after 1 lap it is Ian Manners who leads ahead of Isaac Doble in P2, Martin Shirley P3, Andrew Pike P4, Joseph Doble P5, Adam Delmont P6, followed by Will Redford P7, Callum Garton P8, and there's Jamie Dory followed by Michael Lees to complete the top 10, and with Mikey Doble P11 best of the rest. But behind them Garrett Gardner and Reese Watt here exchanging blows as they make the way out of turn 1 and down towards turn 2 they go once again, or up towards turn 2 we should really say, in the uphill charge. But as they make the way towards the braking zone here, you can see how Daniel Holmer, having started from what was towards the back of that top 12 inverted, starting in P9, he's now got it all to do, and this may be an uphill battle which will be a struggle given how close the fight it is inside the run of the top 20s. They make the way out of turn number 2, still side by side with Gavin Goddard, Lee Horn and Reese Watt exchanging position behind as well in the hunt for P5 in the prime class. What is P14? But meanwhile further up the road here we can see that Andrew Pike is defending and also attacking at the same time versus Martin Shirley as we ride aboard the gearbox here at the Simtech Racing Trailer. And yes, would you believe it, that is 6 cars all clustered in behind him right now, battling for P3 and Martin Shirley. That's how close it is as they make the way into turn number 5, and you can see there Andrew Pike, every corner he has to turn, he has to defend as much as he can attack. Given Callum Garton there, you can see the black yellow machine trying to close on up, but right now everybody really trying to dig their nails in and make sure nobody can make an effective pass as they head up towards turn number 8. And here's the thing for Ian Manners and Isaac Doble, if they can break away here, and if Shirley falls backwards into battling with Pike and Redford, there's no reason why Manners and Doble could potentially run the distance here as we look to Callum. Oh my goodness, and there's contact there with, I believe that's James, that's not Jamie Dory, I think that's Mikey Doble. In fact, I'm not sure who that is. I think that's Joseph Doble, in fact, who was involved in the contact with Adam Delmont, but Delmont being sent for 6 there, coming into the final corner. We'll try and catch exactly what happened very shortly, but Adam Delmont in a very big near miss there, and it could have been far, far worse, but it's not close to being disastrous for Delmont, as to be said, as meanwhile Reese Watt here picking up the pieces and some places as Chris Daines, meanwhile, well, Chris Daines struggled in race number 2, he couldn't find his way on through, but Chris Daines has gained 11 places right now, as meanwhile here we have 3 wide between Smith, Doble and McCain. That is Joseph Doble in the middle, McCain on the inside, and there, that was Lee Horn trying to come on, and he found a bit of contact there with Joseph Doble, and I think he's had to back off as a result, and Sam Smith on the outside there, surviving in the place you don't normally want to be when it's 3 wide, which is on the outside, because you've got to put your faith in the 2 around you. But Adam Delmont has had to be towed to the pitch due to the knock on the final corner. And as they make the way through turn number 3 once more, Jason Morris here battling side by side with Daniel Weston. But we haven't talked about too much the 52's Little Crest Racing drive, but enjoying the battle there for P11 as he gets ahead of Morris and makes his way on here, trying to chase after a top 10 finish after 2 difficult races. But heading into turn at number 5 right now, he drifts his way through. Those difficulties do continue, but He'll be trying to settle it down here as Morris looks to return, move up the inside, and I think it's going to be quite straightforward for Morris. He will have the initiative, he'll have the position on circuit, and West will have to try and find the cutback in the run up towards turn number 8. Meanwhile, looking up to Mikey Doble here, battling side by side with Jamie Dory, and as they make the way out of 8 down into 9, the India Honda racing driver here under pressure to try and cut his way through. He finds his way past his teammate of Jamie Dory, who I think will stay close to him, battle him hard, but at the same time, they'll both be cognizant of the fact they want to find more lap time and gain more places before they really get in their own battle as they make the way into turn number 1. Behind Michael Lees there and lost 6 places off the start. To be fair, with some very nip and tuck moments, he'll be staying in this fight as well, thinking there's some big points to be gained in both the overall and the pro classifications. He makes his way up the hill, but speaking of all the way at the top of the hill right now, Ian Manners here, well, 1.2 second advantage, is breaking away from Isaac Doble. Now Isaac Doble here with Will Redford behind under a bit of pressure. Now will the Next Gen Racing yellow driver just let himself descend through the field, or will he battle for overall position? Of course, if he goes for overall position, he'll lose out to Manners, and therefore he can't potentially be dragged back up to Manners if Manners should eventually be caught up to by the pros, but that's the decision he's got to make. As meanwhile Michael Lees looks at the move, it's 3 wide, they both all turn in at the same time. Lees on the inside, Shirley in the middle, literally being squeezed there by Jamie Dory on the outside as well, and I don't think Shirley had any idea of what was to come other than 2 knocks on 2 sides of the car, and Jamie Dory turned in now, and I think only to find that Michael Lees had come in on the inside line and sent Shirley a little bit deeper than perhaps he originally anticipated, but still they all survive it, albeit it's the damage to the car that these touring cars could definitely take a knock, as we see here. Andrew Pike being passed by Callum Reed-Garton, who gains another place, and Callum Reed-Garton is coming through the field very quickly as Will Redford has made the move on Isaac Doble off camera, but he's gained the place, and now Callum Reed-Garton only has 1 more pro to pass before he takes the lead of the pro class, but still 3 cars to pass if he wants the overall win as well. They're taking a bit of grass there on the exit of the final corner. Got to be careful that, of course, doesn't want the car to be dragged onto the wall. But as they make the way up the hill, Isaac Doble here defends the inside versus Reed-Garton. Reed-Garton's going to try and carry it all the way around, and can he do it here? Of course, he won't have the extra weight in the car, therefore he will have the exit speed by default. He gets it done there. Callum Reed-Garton moves up into P3. He is absolutely on a charge right now, like a bull to a matador, as they make the way up the hill and as they head into the braking zone here. Andrew Pike now on the outside of Isaac Doble, but Doble's going to try and fight this one back. He's going to give it everything he can to try and stay as close as possible to the top 5 overall, but I think now he is battling against a waterfall, if you will, in terms of he'll gradually start to fall down the places, but still Isaac Doble can take some comfort in the fact he's still going to be P2 in the Pro class, even when he does get past by a number of the pros who are coming on through. Meanwhile, further back you can see Chris Daines and Jamie Dory going side by side into turn 3, and Martin Shirley behind here. He's fallen behind them as Chris Daines continues to gain places, and Daines is absolutely picking his way through the field as he moves up into P8 overall, P6 in class, and Reese Watt behind here battling for P3 in the prime class with Alan McCain, who's just off of him, but more importantly moving up into P11 overall, and Reese Watt definitely now starting to bear his fangs, as meanwhile Daniel Holman by comparison all the way down in P27 with a difficult start to this race, and I believe some damage to the car as well, so Daniel Holman will definitely not be making it a triplet here unless by adverse circumstances everything flips, of course, and you never know what can happen. But meanwhile 3 wide here into turn number 8, and we can see Martin Shirley there tucking on the inside of Sam Smith, and the Simtech Racing driver battling hard with the iRacing eSports driver Smith as they come through the final corner, made the way on towards another lap, and they go on to lap number 6 of 14, and as they head across the timeline, will Reese Watt here in a 3 wide versus McCain and Joseph Doble. Doble on the inside, McCain in the middle, Reese Watt on the outside, and McCain now has the reverse Moses pulled on him, but I think he intended for that because now he has the better run out the corner as they head up the hill. But look at Joseph Doble here, he gets a good run as well, and now Reese Watt finds himself having to go defensive versus 2 iRacing eSports drivers and trying to cut around the outside of the NBA Honda Racing driver, and Reese Watt's going to have to really pull something magical out of the bag here on the brakes, because otherwise Doble's just going to simply put it on the inside and make Watt go deep, and that's exactly what happens here, as now Alan McCain has every opportunity to try and hunt him down. As they power their way down towards turn number 3, we ride on board here with Alan McCain as the race leaders just changed position. We will take a look at that very shortly, but you can see that Joseph Doble defending on the inside. Meanwhile, McCain tucking in behind Watt for the time in. Watt trying to go all the way round, and as they exit the corner there, brief tap between the 2 drivers, but no change between them at the moment, as Watt now trying to hold it all the way to the inside of 5. He's going to make Doble have to go deep. Here as McCain looks to the inside. He tries to get the nose in there, but Reeswatt covers that off in return. But what it does mean with Reeswatt holding that inside line and Doble on the outside, McCain now can get his nose into the inside of the turn 5 apex, and in return they come through 6. Now Doble has to go deeper and deeper, takes a bit of gravel with him, but McCain can't capitalise. But meanwhile, we do take a quick look back for the move for what was the lead of this race by Callum Regarton. Well, this was in the run out of 2 and down towards 3. It was 3 wide here, and Callum Regarton left. Ian Manners in the middle, and then it was Will Redford on the outside, and Callum Regarton out braking was Ian Manners, but being matched there by Will Redford, but Redford just on the outside and picking the weaker of the 2 positions to go for the move, and Regarton carrying all the momentum. You can see they're really sternly fighting against Redford to make sure Redford could not come back, and that is how Callum Regarton has taken the lead of this race, coming through from P12, and then we return to live pictures. And Ian Manners, meanwhile, in P3 overall, still leading in the Pro-Am class by a considerable margin over Isaac Doble of what is in the region of 6 seconds. As meanwhile, Gavin Gardner here finds himself being surrounded by Hondas, as it is double jeopardy for Jamie Doyle and what is there. Isaac Doble, as we see the 2 Honda drivers make the way around Gavin Gardner. And I think Gavin Gardner, to be fair, will be looking to come back at them later on in the race where he has got the tyre wear advantage. As you can see, Isaac Doble defend now to the inside, and Doble trying to fight for overall position. He wants that P9 overall. He wants every point in the overall championship, because of course a bit of pride on the line here. As meanwhile, Gavin Gardner having to squirm around the Honda drivers. They make the way through 4 and up into 5. Onto the brakes they go. As meanwhile, Chris Dane side by side with Michael Lees here as they come on down through 5, and Lees on the inside. A little bit of contact between the 2 of them, but I don't think too much going astray, as now Danes stand as close as he possibly can to the back of Michael Lees to be riding with the gearbox here of the Excite Racing Veloster. As they make the way out towards turn 8 at this point, crossing the halfway threshold now in terms of laps turn. No safety cars in sight whatsoever at the moment, but Chris Danes here definitely not playing it safe. He wants to pick his way on through. I think he feels as though he can take a top 5 in the Pro class, with Michael Lees being P5 in Pro and P6 overall, and he can go even further given the pace that Danes is now demonstrating as they make the way out towards turn number 1, but not close enough this time around. But meanwhile, Nigel Stock here battling with Luke Jones in the battle for P11 in the Pro class, P21 overall on circuit. Daniel Weston also close here as the trio make the way onto another lap, coming across that timeline very shortly. And as they head up the hill here, with Weston looking up the inside of Jones. Great racing between them. They may not be battling for the win in the Pro-Am class, but they'll battle for every point, and that's what it's all about as they make the way for return number 1. Weston gets the inside run, but now Luke Jones gets the better run out, but Weston covers him off here as Jones is made to go to the outside. They head up towards the hill. Nigel Stock, meanwhile, being given some breathing room in the Veloster as they make the way up towards the right-hander, and as they do, Weston cuts across here. Jones cuts back, throws it for a dummy, and as they make the way into the apex, well, Jones gets it done there. Had to switch it a couple of times with Weston covering him off, but it is Luke Jones who emerges ahead on the exit of Remus corner. Meanwhile, Lee Horn here getting on past Paul Scott only moments ago, now chasing down Mark Sykes. The next-gen racing drivers from next-gen racing yellow and blue, all fighting for position inside the top 10 of the Pro-Am class, with Mark Sykes P16 overall, P6 in the Pro-Am class by comparison, with the P7 and P8 drivers behind. And as they make the way out of turn number 5 right now, Mark Sykes enjoying a strong performance here today. Despite being perhaps a circuit where the car was not expected to be as strong, he's still making it work, and it's putting him a good number of points into his bank account. But as he makes his way out of turn 7 and up towards 8, still plenty of time to go as we look from Mark Sykes up towards Andrew Pike. As Pike makes his way out of the final corner here, holding on at least for now. Chris Danes has fallen back a little bit, and I believe Danes has just had an off track that's cost him a bit of time. And as they make their way towards the braking zone here for turn 1, well, Lees is showing no signs of slowing down. He goes for it too wide, and this is going to cost the pair of them a huge amount of time to Chris Danes. But you can see Lees makes it happen, and well, the Excite Racing driver definitely really feeling the urge here to get a move on in terms of making moves. But I wonder just how much that is going to galvanise Chris Danes getting into the fight as they head up towards the braking zone here for turn number 2. Jamie Dory is 2.5 seconds back as Danes there tries to cut on in, gives a tap to the rear of Lees to say to him, go on, you can do it. And now, well, Chris Danes comes on through there, with Michael Lees being given the push along, and Andrew Pike loses 2 places for one corner as they make the way down towards turn number 3. In the run down the hill they go, and onto the brakes once more. Pike on the outside of Danes, but I think Danes will have this covered off quite nicely. As meanwhile, looking a bit further back, here is Alan McCain on the outside of Joseph Doble in the battle for P4 in the Pro class, P12 overall, as they make their way out to 3, and McCain can't seem to find a way on through at the moment as they head up towards turn number 5, as we're hearing that John Higgins Senior has had to be towed to the pits due to a mistake coming out of, I think it is turn number 1 as we're to understand it. But meanwhile, Alan McCain here are really pushing on as they roll the way down through turn 6 and 8. Sorry, we should say 6 and 7. As meanwhile, we look here to Chris Danes, who looks around the outside of Michael Lees into turn number 8. And as he comes on around here, gets it done as Lees goes a bit deep. And Andrew Pye looks up the inside into A1. And he gets it done there, does the Sim Racing Collective driver. He finally finds his way back at Michael Lees. But I imagine at least maybe looking for the return move here in the run up towards turn 1. As we see Jamie Dory there with a flash of the lights, trying to get in the heads of the 2 drivers ahead of him as they make their way up the hill. Meanwhile, further back here, Reese Watt battling with Isaac Doble for P2 in the Prime class, and Isaac Doble on the outside, Reese Watt on the inside. Watt gets the move done initially, but as they now make their way in the long run up towards turn number 2, well, you can see behind us where's Alan McCain and Joseph Doble also battling with one another side by side and trying to find a way on through, as there's a bit of contact there between McCain and Doble. I think they will calm it down. I think that may have just been an error, and as they make their way out towards the braking zone, well, what's going to hold the outside? You can see that Isaac Doble keeping it very compact and tight. They're showing a lot of respect for Reese Watt, who I think he will feel as though perhaps he was compressed a little bit to the apex, but still Watt being given all the space today, and Isaac Doble really racing hard but fair as they make their way down. Meanwhile, Alan McCain here defending still versus Joseph Doble as they come through the right-hander at turn number 3, and that's going to open the door up to Sam Smith, who now tries to come on through as they make their way out into 4. But Sam Smith now on the outside for turn number 5, and the problem for Sam Smith from iRacing Esports is, can he get it hooked up all the way around the outside? We have seen drivers do it around the outside of turn number 5, but it requires so much faith in the driver on the inside, but also the ability to carry that speed on the outside, and Swift just does not have enough in the tank to do it as he goes a bit deep. I think that might have been a tap off on the back of Martin Shirley as they made their way out the corner. Shirley looks here to go to the inside into turn number 8, and as they head up towards the Jochen Ring corner, Shirley's got to look for the move here. B for P14 overall, P9 in the Pro class. They come together there as Shirley comes in a little bit hot, albeit the camera angle's a bit deceiving, but either way they make contact, but he gets the move done. And Sam Smith is pushed a bit further back, and now has Lee Horn trying to come through, but Lee Horn backs out and tucks in behind. As they make their way up towards turn number 1, onto lap number 11 they go. Still more laps to be turned, and Michael Lees here falling a little bit further. Jamie Dory now side by side. Lees on the right of the pitch and tucking back in behind Jamie Dory as they head up the hill, and Chris Danes just in front. And Danes holding off Andrew Pye as they head to the braking zone for Remus corner once again. But meanwhile, we look from them to race leader Callum Garton. And we'll since pass in Will Redford and Ian Manners a few laps to go into this very corner of turn number 3. He has broken away from Redford and he has opened that gap up. His last lap was the fastest lap of the race at 39.68, 2.5 tenths faster than Will Redford and 1 tenth faster than Mikey Doble. It does seem as though out of the NDA Honda racing pair of Redford and Doble does have a slight advantage of about 1 tenth a lap, but it is Callum Garton who on his debut is absolutely flying out there, it has to be said. As meanwhile we look back here to the battle in the Prime class where the real heat of the action is at the moment, and they're turning it up in this winter season. There's no signs of it going cold, and Isaac Doble here trying to hold on to P4 versus what is Joseph Doble behind, but also Alan McCain ahead, who has found his way on through. And McCain here for iRacing Esports trying to fight hard for that final spot at the Prime podium, as we see the Doble brothers making their way up towards turn number 8. I believe they're brothers. They head into the braking zone, and as they come on in, well, it's going to be Joseph Doble who gets ahead of Isaac Doble as they make their way into the break, and Isaac Doble backs out there in the run to turn number 9. He knows what to do. He's looking for that run into turns 1 and up to 2 here, as you can see. Meanwhile, Joseph Doble now pulls on. I think he's had a slow down, in fact, given he's run a bit wide, and now he's having to give the time back as Martin Shirley goes on through, and also I think Paul Scott, they're getting the place on Lee Horn for a slowdown for Lee Horn as they make their way onto lap number 12. Behind them, Fernando Colby trying to fight with Mark Sykes as they make their way up towards turn number 2. Not close enough at the moment, but staying close to his rivals. We ride on board here with the Privateer, who's had quite a good debut. It must be said, he's not been up there in terms of the pace compared to the top of the Pro-Am class, but he's definitely been enjoying the battling, and that's what it's all about as he comes on through turn number 2 here. Can't quite find the momentum at the moment versus Mark Sykes. We're in 6/10, but he will get a bit of a draft. Indeed, everybody getting a toe for one another in this long line of Pro-Ams, but the difference is Colby will also have the straight line speed of the Hyundai as they head down towards turn number 3. Onto the brakes they go once again. You can see a bit further up there how Sam Smith trying to find his way past Lee Horn through 3. In fact, Lee Horn goes a bit deep, and as they make the way into turn 4, Smith will be looking to go around the outside of the Pro-Am driver, Will the Pro, as they make the way onto the anchors. But Smith again on that outside line, but this time he looks for the cutback here. He plays it differently. Lee Horn overextends, takes a bit of gravel. Can Smith get it done and break it into 6? He'll think he's got it done here. I don't think Lee Horn's going to have a response, or will he? He'll have the straight line run out to 7, which Sam Smith will have to accommodate for, and Lee Horn in fact gets back ahead, as meanwhile further behind there's been a bit of an instant there. Nigel Stock in contact I think with Luke Jones. There's a tap to the wall. Well, it's a very light tap, but that rear right tyre does look to be out of alignment slightly, and I think Nigel Stock's race has just taken a turn for the worse with the briefest bit of contact as we take a look back at exactly what happened. This was only moments ago, and Luke Jones coming through turn number 5 in the battle for P14 in the Pro-Am class, P24. Red wide, Daniel Weston also did the same, and then Stock and Jones came together, so that explains what happened as Luke Jones returned and Stock came on through, and that is why Stock, I think, may be having to visit the pits, or alternatively having to run slowly here because the damage he's picked up may just be starting to withhold him from delivering the ultimate pace. But meanwhile, we look back up here to a little bit further up the road, and only moments ago we were talking about Colby battling with Mark Sykes, looking for the run on him, and he's found it. He's got ahead of Mark Sykes as they make the way out of turn number 2 and down towards 3, and behind them we still have Jason Morris. And Morris having a weaker race 3 compared to his races 1 and 2, as meanwhile ahead of them, looking in the battle for P2 in the Pro-Am class, it's Reese Watt versus Alan McCain, and both of these drivers will feel as though they've earned that P2 with Ian Manners a long way up the road, but which one of them is going to come out on top here as they're on the penultimate lap, and as they come through turn number 5, McCain here really pushing it as hard as he possibly can, but Watt in return confident on that outside line as they make the way through turn number 6. A bit of a scrape between the two of them there, but nothing major as they make the way out. Race leader Canary Garton crosses the timeline. White flags out as I look out my commentary box window, but we focus here on the battle for what's the final spot inside the overall top 10, and more importantly for these two, the second spot on the Pro-Am podium. And what is ahead coming through turn number 8, and there's contact there, and Reese Watt is turned, but he catches the car just in time, and we can see McCain immediately backing off, so they continue the race side by side, coming out of the final corner, so they carry on from where they left off as they make the way up the hill, and McCain's going to have the inside line here, but the difference will be what will have the run into 2. Meanwhile, further back, Martin Shirley was slow down there coming up the final corner. Joseph Doble and Paul Scott both go deep, and Shirley cuts his way back on the inside of them as further up the road. It's all contact between Danes and also Pike, and I believe that's Jamie Dory and Michael Easton. They're far wide on corner exit. My goodness! Well, they were all saving it to the final lap, and will we be telling them to calm it down? But as they make the way down, we've only caught the tail end of that, and it looks though Michael Lees has got ahead on the inside line. As they come onto the brakes, it's 3 wide. Lees cuts across. He cuts across the nose of Pike. Danes finds his way around the outside of Pike, or does he as they make the way out of the corner? There's contact between Lees and Danes, and Lees is sent to the barrier. 1 drops, and there's still 3 remaining as now Danes has to hold off Dory, and meanwhile Andrew Pike comes up to P5 overall, P4 in class as they make the way down into turn number 6, but it's definitely getting elbows out right at the end there. But speaking of right at the end, when he comes to the final corner, we asked the question, could he make it 3 out of 3 with a reverse grid of P12, and he does. Callum Garton is your triple overall winner, taking the win overall in the Pro class in race 3 ahead of Will Redford P2, Mikey Doble P3 there behind as they cross the line, and it'll be Ian Manners who brings home the Pro-Am win, P4 overall in a brilliant drive from the 52 Silver Crest Racing driver, ahead of Andrew Pike who holds on to the final overall top 5 position, Chris Danes P6, Jamie Dory P7, Gavin Garner P8, and then it will be Alan McCain who finishes P2 in the Pro-Am class ahead of Reese Watts to complete the top 10. Isaac Doble Besteres P11 there ahead of Martin Shirley and Sam Smith, It'll then be Paul Scott ahead of Joseph Doble, followed by Lee Horn, and then it is Jason Morris, P17 ahead of Mark Sykes, Fernando Colbe P19, and then it is Daniel Weston P20 as Weston has crossed the line just now. Matthew Addy P21 in a day to forget for the Next Gen Racing yellow driver, and then Luke Jones P22, Jonathan Collins P23 as he crosses the line there, and shortly it will be Nigel Stock who in a difficult moment in that contact with Luke Jones dropped to P15 in class and finishes P24 overall, and then it will be Daniel Holmer who crossed the line P25, not able to make it a triplet of wins, but 5 wins on the bounce. That is no mean feat. And then Michael Lees will be coming on home in a wounded car as he makes his way on through the final couple of corners, and that's after the contact, of course, that was triggered off by that battle between Chris Daines, Andrew Pike and Jamie Dory, and you can see there a puncture on the rear of the car and also a damaged right rear tyre. He comes to line in what will be a P26 as that car I think will need a push for not much longer as he makes his way on through and he completes the finishing order with the retirees of John Higgins Sr., Davide Favo, Adam Delmont and Philip Bruberg. But what fantastic racing, and well, Ian Manners picking up his first win of the season in the Pro-Am class for 52 Zilla. Reverse grid aided him of course, but he still had to deliver the goods and play a very matured response to the pros coming on through. Difficult racing between Chris Daines and Dory Pike, but still brilliant racing for them, and also Michael Lees. But I think some of that may go to the stewarding room with regards to what happened at the very end there. But it is, of course, always going to happen in the third race of the day. It is going to get intense. People are going to see a little bit of red. That is the nature of the beast of the race in the touring car. That Alan McCain from iRacing Esports there, P2 ahead of Reese Watt in a brilliant rivalry. And I'll say this now, I think we're going to see plenty more of the McCain-Watt rivalry, given what we've seen today. But with all the results in, let's take a look at those results. Provisional, subject to stewards' inquiries, of course. Well, we start off then with the overall finishing positions, and Callum Reed-Garton in race number 3 making it 3 out of 3 overall today, ahead of Will Redford and Mikey Doble, also your pro podium there, and then Ian Manners coming home P4, your winner in the Pro-Am class in a superb drive ahead of Andrew Pike who completes the top 5, and then Chris Daines, Jamie Dory, Gavin Gardner, Alan McCain and Reese Watt completing your top 10. Special mention to Alan McCain and Reese Watt, of course, second place and third place respectively in the Pro-Am class, completing the Pro-Am podium, and then best the rest there in P11 Pro-Am driver of Isaac Doble in a very calm and collected drive. Couldn't quite make it a Pro-Am podium, but still that P4 well earned and that P11 deserved, ahead of Martin Shirley, Sam Smith, Joseph Doble and Lee Horn to complete the top 15, and then Jason Morris, Mark Sykes and Madonna Colway to complete the top 18 in the overall standings. We then come on to the pro classification. Specifically, of course, and we can see here Callum Reed-Garton taking the win, ahead of Will Redford and Mikey Doble, and interestingly Redford only taking that second place by 4 tenths over Mikey Doble, and Callum Reed-Garton just able to increment out the gap gradually as the race wore on. Andrew Pike P4 ahead of Chris Daines, completed the top 5, Jamie Dory P6, Gavin Gardner P7 in a difficult day for the Verona Motorsport Audi driver, but had a strong race too. Couldn't quite back it up in race number 3, but still plenty of rounds to go. Martin Shirley P8 there. The Simtech Racing driver 9, there was a lot in the tank and just could not quite make it count right at the end today, with Michael Lees behind him. We jumped over there, Sam Smith P9, Michael Lees P10, battling for the top 5 to the finish until that contact right at the end, and then Adam Delmont with that early retirement, of course, after the instant at what was turn number 9. We then come on to the Pro-Am class. And we can see here that Ian Manners taken the win in the end by 13.3 seconds over Alan McCain and Reese Watt, with the iRace Esports and JW Motorsport drivers battling hard for that P2 all the way to the finish. Outside the podium, but still well inside the top 5, Isaac Doble and Joseph Doble, the Doble brothers there, both having great races ahead of Lee Horn P6, Jason Morris P7, Mark Sykes P8, Fernando Colbe P9, with Colbe enjoyed his strongest race of today, much like Mark Sykes as well in race number 3. Daniel West as well, finishing inside the top 10. He'll be pleased with that. Some good points to the board for the 52 Zilla with Chris Crest Racing driver. Best of the rest then, Matthew Addy P11, ahead of Luke Jones, Jonathan Collins, Nigel Stock and Daniel Holmer, with Paul Scott there P16, John Higgins Sr. with a retirement 6 laps on the finish, and Davide Favo with an early retirement as well. And I believe we also have Philip Bruberg there, unfortunately not able to get off the line due to technical issues. The Bright Esports driver, classified P19, but I believe that will be a did not finish or did not start. But those are the race results, ladies and gentlemen, subject to any insurance inquiries, of course. And now it's time for us to get ready for our post-round interviews with our selected drivers. We'll be back in approximately 10 minutes' time. Don't go anywhere. You won't want to miss them. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it is time for us to conduct our post-round interviews with our selected drivers. And today, we so far have 3 pros who have signed up to conduct interviews. We'll be very shortly hearing from Callum Reed-Garton, the privateer, who has taken dominance today and really led the way from start to finish on his debut in the privateer Elantra. And then we'll be hearing from Mikey Doble and Will Redford. In fact, starting off with Will Redford and then cutting across to Mikey Doble to hear their perspectives on the race. And of course, 2 teammates who might have been a bit surprised by the pace of Callum Reed-Garton, but also at the same time looking to take the rivalry between one another to the next level. But we start off, of course, with our triple winner in the pro class today. And as he joins me in the interview room now, Callum, it's great to see you on circuit first. It's been a long time since we've had the pleasure of seeing you race in a NXTGEN Races series, but what a way to make your debut in the NXTCC. 3 wins out of 3 in an absolutely flying Elantra at the Red Bull Ring, and just leaving the field, I think, absolutely flabbergasted with your pace. It's got to be the perfect start for you.
Yeah, it was really good race. Like, I had a lot of fun. Like, that's the most important thing is having fun. And yeah, it was just really good. I really enjoyed myself. I had an excellent race. Those guys were really quick, and it was a lot of respect on track. It was really it was a lot of fun.
Well, it definitely looks as though you're enjoying yourself out there. And let's just take it back before the racing really kicked off, talking a little bit about the qualifying session. All the way through the qualifying session, it looked as though it was going to go your way, because every time somebody put in a pole lap, you seemed to find a way to knock it down, not just by a tenth, not just by 2, but about half a second. I have to ask, was there ever a perfect lap out there? Because it just looked as though the time was coming in spades.
Yeah, there was a perfect lap out there. I mean, towards the end, I did mess up my lap a little bit. I was hoping to possibly get into the 39s because the track temperature was quite hot. But yeah, luckily got a decent result in qualifying, and then just carried it on through the races.
Well, carrying it into the races after a brilliant qualifying session, let's talk a little bit about the run in race number 1. Off the line, of course, we had the rolling start rather than the standing start, which is a little bit different to what perhaps everybody expected, but you made it work. And on the run to turns 1 and 2, you had a bit of a fight from Will Redford and Mikey Doble, but very quickly held them off and then kept the run there. Was that always the plan, just make sure you stayed in position for turns 1 and 2 and then just disappear off into the distance?
I knew I was going to have a bit of a race, and obviously with TCR being TCR, obviously you're going to want to try and get in front, because it's obviously a lot difficult to overtake in TCR cars than it is in, like, rear-wheel drive cars. So obviously battling for like track position was key and vital to pulling away, or at least maintaining a gap of some sort. But huge credit to Will and Mikey and everybody else who I race against in tonight. Like, the amount of respect on track was brilliant. Like, the standard of racing was really good, and I hope everybody thinks the same as well.
Well, it was fantastic racing up and down the field. I'm glad to see you found the respect out on circuit was given and taken in equal measure, and translating it over into race number 2 with the standing start. Did that make you raise an eyebrow at all in terms of, okay, you nailed the rolling start, but now it's going to be hard? And we did see the Hondas launch very well off the line.
Yeah, like, I was struggling in practice. I was trying to dial in the bite point for the double clutch, but it seems the Elantra isn't the best getting off the line, especially around here. I think it varies from track to track, but yeah, the Hondas did get a good pull, but obviously because they've got like a bit more of a weight ballast, as soon as they got into like 3rd gear, they'd bog a little bit, and then that gap would slowly like go back down again.
I see. And just take us through, of course, because we saw, given the fact you bogged down a little bit in the car, Redford and Doble were able to start putting moves on you, but it looks as though very quickly you found your pace and were able to start putting the moves back on them. Just take us through that dynamic.
I don't know really. I mean, I suppose it's with Red Bull Ring, with being it's such a high-speed circuit and very like some corners are very acute. You kind of have to know your lines essentially. So like going up into turn 2, the outside line is quicker than the inside line when it comes to overtaking, and you can get a run on the outside again when it comes to defending going into turn 3. And then obviously you've got lots of camber variations in the track as well, so you have to use those to your advantage. So it's placing your car in the right places realistically, to get that little bit of extra grip where you can hold it around the outside and maintain the speed through the corner.
Oh, most definitely. And I have to ask, because we've talked about the Elantra really being the one-lap performance car, having all the strengths, if you will, invested into that one lap where it can shine. But then as it goes deeper and deeper into the race, it loses out to a degree in the tyre wear. Did you feel that at all, given the fact you're also running an extra 25 kilograms? And just to add on to that, the Honda's running 75 kilograms. Did it become noticeable?
Yeah, it did. It was more at the beginning of the race though. So on higher fuel, the Elantra takes a little bit longer to fire the tyres up, and then depending on obviously your driving style, towards the end of the stint, once the fuel burns off and you've got say about 10 litres left, the Elantra comes alive, and it's like a completely different car. But with the Honda, Will was telling me in the waiting room that the tyres are fired up straight away. You can just push it straight from lap 1, whereas the Elantra you have to be very careful with it, otherwise it will just bite you and it will chuck you off the track. But towards the end of the stint, I knew if I could maintain my pace during the beginning and middle of the stint, come towards the end of the stint, I'm in a good position.
Indeed, and maintaining that pace. And when making the moves on Mikey and also Redford, it looked as though you sized them up quite nicely and got it done. I have to ask the question, of course, battling on the brakes, Honda does look to be the car that is the one to beat on the brakes. How do you work around that in the Elantra?
They're both very different in terms of braking. With the Elantra, you do a lot more trail braking. With the Honda, I think it's a lot more on off, get your braking done on the power through the corner. Whereas you have to carry the speed through the corner on the brakes with the Elantra, and obviously get that rotation and obviously get on the power as soon as you possibly can. So, I mean, each track is each to their own, and obviously each car will be different to each track. So, we'll see in the next couple of races what sort of position we're in.
Oh, indeed. And just coming on to race number 3, of course, I have to ask, how was your reaction? Well, we saw your reaction in the YouTube chat with regards to the lottery balls, but when you saw the number 12 was pulled out of the bowl, did you think to yourself, okay, I've got all the work to do, or was it a bit of a grin and sort of, you know what, I look forward to playing with 11 other drivers here in the run to P1?
Yeah, it was fun. I was like, oh yeah, reverse grid 12. This will be actually fun, and it's nice coming through the pack. It is really nice. And it's a lot of fun as well, because obviously you get to practice your overtaking and stuff like that, and what works and what doesn't work, and it's just a mad scramble, isn't it? Who can get in front first? But no, we had a lot of fun. Everyone shown a lot of respect, as I said before, and it was I think a lot of people got through and had a lot of fun tonight, which is the main thing.
Oh, indeed. You definitely sound as though you've been having a lot of fun, and may that fun continue as we roll forward. Now, of course, we've got the Christmas break coming up, but you are the man of the moment going into the Christmas break with a triplet of wins to your name now, and with that momentum in the Pro Class. But when we do come back, we'll be heading to Japan for the Twin Ring Motegi circuit. How do you feel about the rather domestic Japanese circuit?
It's quite a good track. It suits the Elantra. So I'd imagine it suits the Elantra, given the sort of corners that it's got in it. But I don't know. I guess we'll see. But hopefully we can have a good outing again as we did at Red Bull, and and hopefully we'll have some fun close racing to watch. But I'm looking forward to it.
Well, that's absolutely great to hear, Callum. And just before we do let you go, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out to or give a thank you to live on the broadcast this evening?
Yeah, so thank you to the admins for getting me in last minute, midway through the season. Much appreciated. Obviously you, Paul, giving us great commentary every single time, flawless. And also my teammates as well. We were all Italian. They probably can't understand your commentary, unfortunately, Paul, but I wish them all a Merry Christmas. Wish everybody else a Merry Christmas. Yeah, that's it.
Oh, it's been fantastic having you as always, Callum. We wish you as well a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Congratulations on your triplet of wins. You're definitely going to be the man to beat in the second half of the season when we come back at the start of January. But will you be able to do it? We'll find out. But until then, we wish you all the best and we'll speak to you again soon.
Take care, Paul.
So hearing that there from Callum Reed-Garton, absolutely pleased with his performances tonight and really talking about the dynamic of the Elantra versus the Civics, and also how on the heavy fuel that weight becoming more noticeable rather than on the lower fuel, but enjoying the racing through, and definitely now an unexpected span in the works perhaps for the Pro class and the one to really hunt down. But of course we'll have to wait and see whether that momentum carries forward at Twin Ring Motegi, and as you're saying there, potentially a circuit which favours the Elantra, but we'll have to wait and find out whether that truly is the case. But as we now come on to our second into E4 this evening, it's going to be none other than Will Redford. And of course, Will Redford having a good run of performances himself today as well, with 2 second places and a 3rd place. And as he does join me in the interview room now. Well, Will, of course, today you wanted to take the win, but Callum Reed-Garton seemed to have the edge through and through, but 2 very strong runs to P2 and a 3rd place at the end. It looked as though you gave it everything out of the circuit and left nothing behind before Christmas.
Yeah, I tried my best out there. I mean, so did Mikey, but the Honda just was nowhere near as quick as what the Atlanta was today. So it was nearly impossible to stay with him. Even when you were right tucked up behind him, we just couldn't stay with him. So, it was a bit disappointing the fact there was no chance for us to really race for the win. But nonetheless, 3 podiums, and I did outscore Mikey just, so I have gained a little bit back in the championship, and I have extended my lead on 3rd place as well. So it could be worse.
Oh, most definitely. And we really do appreciate that spirit there in terms of making the most of every race and every situation. And well, to be fair, all the way through this evening, it was all about you trying to find a way to undermine the pace of Callum Reed-Garton, also staying 1 step ahead of your teammate. And let's start off with qualifying, of course. In qualifying, for a good number of times, we saw this back and forth between yourself, Doble, Reed-Garton, and also, to a lesser extent creeping in there, it was Danes and Dory trying to also get that pole time. How are you feeling in qualifying? Because it looks like your lap times were coming through strong, and then we suddenly saw Reed-Garton putting times that started being 3 or 4 tenths faster.
Yeah, it started off all right, and I thought I might still, I might have a chance of pole still. In practice, I actually finished ahead of him, but I think that was more down to he didn't get any laps in, so it was a bit squiffed the results. But I thought I'd be able to stay a lot closer than what I did, and then once the session carried on and the cars got lighter and the tires got worn down a bit, he suddenly started pulling half a second a lap, and there was no way I could gain that that half a second back. I think I had maybe 2 more attempts in me if I pulled together a perfect lap, maybe a bit more if I found myself a toe, but it was more I was more fighting for second at that point, and I was fighting against Mikey, and Mikey didn't manage to have his lap up at the end, so I managed to finish ahead of him.
Oh, indeed. And then going into race number 1, we saw, of course, the rolling start there, which was a little bit different from what we're used to. We saw you really try to put the pressure on it straight away as soon as we got the green flag battling into turns 1 and 2. Did you have a particular plan in mind to try and undermine the straight line speed of the Elantra, given how strong it is on those extended straights?
I didn't really have a plan, but I knew that the Honda is better straight away. So I knew that across the first maybe 1 or 2 laps, I'd have the pace advantage. So it ended up with me just trying to drive behind him. I actually ended up going for the move straight away, which I didn't want to do, but the Honda was just better off the line. So I went for the move. And then obviously he didn't want to give that space up. So we went side by side for a lap, which was a lot of fun, but eventually I ended up losing out. But I didn't really have a plan necessarily. I just wanted to race my race, and because the Honda was quicker straight away, it ended up meaning that I was trying to go for a move that didn't end up working out.
Completely understand, but it didn't quite work out in race number 1 in terms of going for the win, but you still managed to hold off Doble all the way to the end. And then going into race number 2, again, much of the same, but a standing start this time. With the standing start being restored, did that give you a change of thought or anything along those lines, or was it just business as usual, hold Doble at bay and try to undermine Reed-Garton for the win?
I think after the first race, you sort of realised that there's not much point in me racing for the win because the pace just isn't there. So I did get a good start though, and I managed to get ahead. So I was staying ahead up until I made a mistake, and then I think I dropped back down into fourth. And at that point, Mikey was right behind Callum, and he managed to stay right behind him for a few laps. So he pulled up this massive gap that, you know, because of the draft, he was maybe 2-3 tenths a lap quicker. So I couldn't gain back the time on Mikey that I ended up losing from my mistake. And we ended up doing basically the same lap times towards the end. But that draft from Callum was crucial in keeping Mikey ahead, like through the mid part of the race. And it sort of made me realise that maybe we could stay with Callum and hope he made a mistake in say the third race, but it was impossible for us to go for a move. And that, you know, I had some feedback from Mikey during the race, and he was saying how hard it was just to stay with Callum, let alone like try and pull a move on him.
Well, indeed, it looked tough out there to try and stay with the Flying Elantra, but coming on to race number 3, a reverse grid top 12, the maximum possible number. There must have been a little bit of a smile creep on your face in terms of, you know, we're going all in with the battling in race number 3.
Yeah, I mean, I love reverse grid racing. I think it's a lot of fun, especially when people are you know, somewhat safe, and you know you're not going to get fired off into a wall somewhere. So I was looking forward to it because it meant that I could put as many cars as possible between myself and Callum and Mikey. And maybe they'd get caught up in something and I'd be able to gain loads of points on them. So, you know, I just did my normal start and just, you know, took the chances that were there and made my way forward. And I did manage to make my way forward to the lead, but then so did Callum, and he managed to stick and pull the move on me, and I just couldn't keep up. So I had to let him go, unfortunately. And then it was just a race between me and Mikey, which I ended up winning out. So yeah, it was a lot of fun, especially at the start, trying to pass everybody. But it's a shame that maybe Callum didn't get caught up in something and have to work a bit harder.
Oh, indeed, but still, you gave it everything there, and like you said at the very start, made some critical ground in the championship in terms of gaining points on your teammate from NDA Honda Racing and your rival of Mikey Doble. And I have to ask, going into the Christmas break now, of course, you are looking to be the #1 contender, chasing down Doble for that potential championship win come the end of the season. How would you evaluate your first half of this season?
I think I've been pretty strong. There's been some chances that maybe I've lost out on. Some wins that maybe I should have had that I didn't. But, you know, I had a lot of bad luck at the last round, which put me a lot further back than what I really should be. So, you know, it's going to be difficult to chase Mikey down because all he's got to do is bring it home. And it's quite a big point gap. So I'm going to have to hope he gets some bad luck maybe. But I feel like I've had a good first half, and we'll see how the rest goes.
Well, indeed, it swings and roundabouts, and anything can happen over the remaining 4 rounds. And speaking of upcoming rounds, we head to Japan in 2 weeks' time for Twin Ring Motegi. How are you feeling for the Japanese circuit?
I've never driven it before, so I'll have to buy it and do some laps. But I don't know. We'll find out.
Well, we most definitely will. But before we do let you go, is there anybody you'd like to say thank you to or give a shout out to live on air this evening?
Yeah, shout out to you for doing the broadcast. Shout out to my dad, who was watching in the other room, and my mum. And shout out to Callum for a brilliant performance tonight.
I'm sure your mum and dad will definitely appreciate it. Will and Callum will the same. We absolutely love having you here as always. But congratulations on your triple podium today. Great racing for yourself, Will, and we look forward to seeing you out on circuit in 2 weeks' time. Merry Christmas to you and the family.
Thanks, mate. Have a good Christmas.
All the best. So hearing there from Will Redford, and on reflection, you'll note there how he's talking about the fact that after qualifying and race #1, really seeing that in the end, the win in each of the races seemed to be a foregone conclusion in terms of Callum Garton's performance, but still battling for P2 and really the right to claim that if he can't pick up the win became that P2, and making it happen 2 times out of 3 versus Mikey Doble, meaning he's given and gained a little bit of ground over his main championship rival. Of course, we're not quite sure how Garton will factor into that as the season goes on, given he's joined so late, but it's going to be interesting to see. And also, speaking about last time out, Zolder losing some critical points in a difficult day, a lot of bad luck at Zolder, but could he potentially turn it around? Much like what Mikey Doble said in his interview last week, it's all about trying to avoid the bad luck, avoiding having those rounds where you drop those major points. Redford's had one difficult round, he won't be looking for another one, but could his rivals potentially have slips on the way? You never know. That's what it's all about in terms of racing, but definitely a fast driver out there and really digging deep in the NDA Honda racing machine. As we now come from our second interviewee to our third interviewee, well, we'll very shortly be speaking to Mikey Doble, and what has been a fantastic set of races this evening for him, much like his teammate, and again, losing a little bit of ground in terms of his advantage over his teammate, but I don't think he will be too upset about that for the simple reason it has been a solid set of performances from Mikey Doble. And as he joins me in the interview room now, Mikey, it was going to be a tough evening after seeing the pace from Callum Regarton in the qualifying session. But in the end, it became a charge all about trying to hunt Regarton down when you could, but also making sure to take points off of your teammate, Will. In the end, not quite able to get the complete advantage over him, but still, all 3 podiums and a P2 at one point, a successful night all the same?
Yeah, I think tonight was about damage limitation. Obviously, Callum's extremely quick in his own right, with or without ballast, and I think I mentioned last week the Honda's not particularly strong around this track, and then you add 75 kilos onto it, and it kind of turns a weak link into a disaster. So yeah, we're never expecting to beat Callum tonight. Obviously, he's a newcomer to the championship, so he's not in contention for the championship title. So it became about forgetting about him and just trying to take home as many points as you can. I mean, race 2 it was quite handy because I managed to keep in his slipstream to tow me away from the other cars, but I was never going to mount a challenge on him. Just didn't have the pace in the car.
Well, indeed. And speaking of challenges, let's talk a little bit about qualifying. Less so about the times come up on the board and finding that ultimate lap. But firstly, just the space on the circuit, we saw throughout qualifying about 60% to 70% of drivers were all concentrated in 1 kilometre of the circuit trying to gain the tow. But the best time seemed to come when drivers either found just one car to tow off of, or alternatively, they did it in completely clear air. What was your perspective on that?
Yeah, it's when you try and work with someone and try and orchestrate a qualifying session, it either works perfectly or it turns into a bit of a disaster. And yeah, for me and Jamie and I, it didn't work at all. I mean, when he was on his hot lap a couple of times, he got a couple of off tracks, and maybe I messed up the lap as well. And then when I was behind him on one occasion, I was 2 or 3 attempts up, and I think he made a mistake in front of me, and I just tapped the rear of him, got a car contact, so it invalidated my lap. So yeah, around a circuit like this, there is time to be gained, even in these cars with a good slipstream. So you've got to try and put yourself in a position to get a slipstream, but at the same time, you can't compromise yourself too much that you don't give yourself enough attempts to put a quick lap in. So I think the ultimate lap time would have been there if we could have timed it perfectly with a tow, but the guys that just cracked on and got on with their own business were probably coming out better because they could focus on their lap and not helping someone else.
Oh, indeed, and finding that lap time in the end and working your way around the challenges, or tow or no tow, how do you go? We saw you put yourself on the second row of the grid, and going into race number 1, of course, a rolling start, a bit different from what we're used to. But it looks like you tried to get on the bounce versus Redford, and also kind of regarded into the opening corners.
Yeah, I mean, obviously rolling start was a bit unexpected, but just got on with it. Turn 1 was actually fairly clean at the front, less so at the back, I hear. But yeah, it was about, I didn't really know what to expect. I didn't believe that someone would actually have the pace to pull away from us, even with how strong the tow is around here. But such as the speed of that Elantra with only 25 kilos of ballast in it, it was mission impossible to try and beat him tonight. So yeah, race 1 was a bit messy. Got embroiled in a battle with Pironi in the Verano Elantra. Again, a car that probably wouldn't normally be battling with, but given the weight situation, it was allowing him to, and some other people, to have their moment tonight and shine up front a little bit. And unfortunately, I think he got a little bit over ambitious on a couple of attempts to try and overtake me, and it ended up costing us both a heap of time. So it took me out of contention really for second or first place in that one, and it became a bit of a fight to try and make my way back to the podium, which was a good result in the end, considering I was back to 6th at one point.
Well, indeed, fighting your way back onto the podium in race number 1 and setting yourself up for success in race number 2, and there you're able to get one over your teammate.
Yeah, race 2 was quite clean in the end. I think Will was leading, made a mistake, went sideways, so I had to take the lead there. I had Callum behind me. It was just undefendable. There was no point in defending the position for 10 laps or more when, yeah, he's probably 4 or 5 kilometres an hour quicker than me on the straight in my slipstream. So I thought if I let him past and try and tag on to into his slipstream and try and somewhat keep up with him, he can drag me away from the rest of the pack, and that's exactly what he did. So boring, tactical, but it brought me back some points in race 2.
Indeed, and then coming on to race number 3 now, of course, we've asked you before with regards to when numbers are drawn out of the Lottery Bowl, what makes you smile, and you've always said about the more drivers to pass your way through, the better. So when the number 12 came out, I wonder if there was a little bit of a yes in the NDA Honda garage for yourself.
No, it's quite the opposite from me. I know Will likes to see number 12 come out the box, but no, I'd like it to be, if I'm winning, I'd like it to be number 6. Less stress when you're championship leader. Boring is good, but no, I mean, it is good fun coming through the pack. You do have to keep your wits about you because you're racing guys that you don't race with on a weekly basis, and sometimes know exactly what moves they're going to pull. But nonetheless, it's always good to race different people coming through the pack in different cars. It was tough to try and negotiate past my 2 brothers cleanly without ending up in an argument, which I managed to do successfully. But by the time I got through to third, I think it was, Callum had already passed Will, and it was adios from him. So it was about trying to catch Will up and seeing if I had anything to pass him. And with 4 laps to go, I was looking strong to try and pass him. I said, look, we may as well forget about him and just race for the win, because we are 1 and 2 in the championship. And last couple of laps, I just overcooked the rear tyres. I think started overdriving the car and just didn't have enough to actually try and pass him. So I had to settle for 3rd.
Well, you settled at a 4th, 3rd in the end, but still some valuable points. And just on the point of your brothers Isaac and Joseph, both of them having great performances tonight and also being right up there with that reverse grid. Just your thoughts on that? A little bit of brotherly pride surely coming through, seeing them fighting inside the overall top 10, not just the Pro-Am top 10.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they're both improving week on week, and they've definitely had a tough baptism of fire into the series, which I told them it absolutely would be coming into a competitive touring car league like this. But both took a step up in my eyes in terms of pace around this track, and both top 10, top 12 material, and they proved that by getting into the reverse grid draw. So I think racecraft can do with a little bit of work in certain areas, but that will come with experience, and it's good to see that they're now in a position where they're performing and scoring points for the team and for themselves in the Pro-Am Championship.
Oh, indeed. And then coming on to your championship and focusing a little bit more on yourself, of course, going into the break, you're going to be the man in form and with the momentum in the Pro Championship. How do you feel now that we're at the halfway point, your championship has gone so far, and what lies in wait in the remaining 4 rounds?
Well, I'm happy with the points deficit I've pulled out over 2nd place. I think tonight I haven't lost many points at all. I think maybe I've lost 3 or 4 points over 2nd, but I had around about a 50-point lead coming into tonight, and there's no drop scores, so the gap is still healthy. I need to control myself, not make sure I don't do anything stupid. Sometimes 3rds and 4ths or 2nds are good enough to keep your championship lead alive. So I'm hoping that the tracks we're coming into in the second half of the season will start to suit the Honda a little bit better, and suit myself as a driver as well, as I prefer tracks that have got more corners and less heavy braking zones. So yeah, I think I'm confident for the second half of the season, and really interested to see how the championship progresses.
Well, speaking of confidence going into the second half of the season, we're heading to Twin Rim Motegi in 2 weeks' time, the Japanese circuit, of course one of the major test circuits for Honda. Have you had the chance to drive around there yet?
I haven't. I need to buy the track actually. I do roughly know the configuration of the track from watching racing on the telly, but I'm yet to drive it, which is pretty poor considering the amount of running in a Honda I do, but yeah, maybe I need to treat myself over Christmas and download the track early and start putting in the laps there if I want to be competitive come January.
Oh, brilliant. Well, just before we do let you go, Mikey, is there anybody you'd like to give a special Christmas shout out to or thank you to before we do let you go?
Yeah, so all my family, I do the roll call as it's the last one of 2022. So grandparents, both sets of grandparents watching from home. I know they enjoy tuning into your coverage every week to watch the touring cars. Mum and Dad that are watching from downstairs. Can't say my brothers anymore because they're now in the race. Auntie, uncle, other family members, if you're watching from home, hope you enjoy the race. And thanks to my teammates for making it enjoyable to come racing every week. Thanks to NXTGEN and Jamie for all the work they do behind the scenes in giving us a pretty fluid and very fun racing league to race in, and for yourself for great coverage as usual.
Well, Mikey, we have to say thank you to yourself for joining us week in and week out on circuit and in the interview room. Thank you as always, and I wish yourself and all the family a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Congratulations on your results today, and we look forward to seeing you take to the tarmac in Japan in 2 weeks' time.
Thanks, Paul. Take care. All the best.
Likewise. So hearing there from Mikey Doble, who again, a very measured thought process with regards to his championship campaign coming to the end of this first half. And I get the feeling there as he was talking more about perhaps focusing more on those seconds, those thirds and those fourths, starting to feel a little bit more like a Prost rather than a Senna. And what I mean by that is starting to focus on, okay, what results do I need to get myself to the end of the championship on that top step? Or indeed, much like Jamie Doyle was saying in the interviews in season 1 of the NXTCC, starting to be more Colin Turkington in the approach in terms of not having to over push it, just set a target of okay, today we just need third place finishes as a minimum and going for those rather than overextend. And I really think now that with Doble having a reasonable points advantage, he's not clear by a whole round by any means, but he is now starting to turn the tempo on to make the pressure fall on the rivals chasing rather than him as the championship leader, and that may just help him shift it up another gear in terms of guaranteeing that championship crown will be his come the end of this season. But we'll have to wait and see. Of course, he is the favourite currently. But with the arrival of Callum Regas, that may mean the win points are going to start to fall away, but we'll also have to find out whether NDA Honda Racing, indeed the rest of the field, can find a way to gradually reel Callum Regas in and those wins start to open up even more. Never say never, of course. We've got plenty of rounds of racing to come. Now, speaking of things to come, I'm very pleased to say that we do have one more interview this evening, and it will be with Reese Watt from what is the JW Motorsport team. Now, Reese Watt, of course, one of our Pro-Am drivers, he has nominated himself forward to be interviewed. It's always good to hear from our Pro-Ams as well as our pro drivers, in the fact we get to hear different sides of the perspective, and also drivers who have been battling in amongst the midst of the field throughout time and time again. And Reese Watt, one of the major contenders, it should be said, in the Pro-Am Championship, going into tonight in what was P3, and by no means falling out of that hunt, coming out tonight, of course. But let's hear from himself very shortly as he's about to join us in the interview room. And as he joins me now, Reese, last week was a washout at Zolder. After coming off the triplet of wins at Circuit de Barcelona Catalunya, it didn't go right in Belgium. But today, it seems as though you're finding the pace once again, and also you were right in the thick of the battling from start to finish in all 3 races. A happier day today?
Yeah, I'd say so. It was good to pretty much stay consistent, avoid any accidents, and just have some fun. Some good close racing. And I think it was just more about trying to stay in a slipstream with the quicker guys, the pros, and just enjoy myself, don't overdrive, and remain consistent. I do have a tendency to overdrive, you see, so when I get into a nice flow, a nice rhythm, you've got some quick cars in front of you, it's always makes it always a bit more enjoyable.
Well, it definitely looks as though you're enjoying yourself out there tonight. And let's talk a little bit about qualifying first. We saw in qualifying the top 17 separated by only a second. And you found yourself in there, albeit towards the bottom half of the top 17, the top 20. Do you feel as though there's a natural pressure on in qualifying because of how close the field is? I mean, not just in the pros, but also you've got the likes of Holmer, you've got Manners, yourself, you've got a whole roster of primes who are all vying to be in those top portions of the grid.
Yeah, well, it was interesting with qualifying because my practice pace wasn't so great, so I didn't think I'd be in and amongst it. So I was surprised to see that, I think, did I qualify 13th or 15th? I think up to 13th, there was only a few hundredths between us. So I was quite happy with the way it's gone. And just to be in and amongst it, I actually came into Red Bull. It's not one of my favorite tracks. So I came into this thinking it's just got to be damage limitation, really, and see if I can come out with a good result.
Well, indeed, and starting off a good way to limit the damage in qualifying. Going into race number 1, we saw you starting from what was, as you say, in fact it's P16 on the grid, as I've just double checked our notes here, but fighting your way up to P12 and also fighting your way inside the top 5 of the Pro-Am class there. But it looks so nip and tuck on the straights with the slipstream plus also the heavy braking. Just take us through from your perspective all that battling, because it must have been exhausting. That was just one race.
Yeah, I didn't turn my fan on this race, and that was a mistake. You get really hot, and I think you never know what's going to happen. You can, people do send it. You're always worried about that, but then going 2x2 into a corner holds you back and gives you a poor run out the corner if you're not planted in the right position. So there's a lot of concentration going on where to place the car and where to position the car. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it paid off, sometimes it didn't. But yeah, like I say, if we're keeping it clean, not overdriving, staying consistent, then that opportunity might come again, and you can, fight back for that position you may have lost. But yeah, ultimately, it's just recognizing the quick guys. You do see the quick guys in amongst who are battling, who are trying to make their way through, and yeah, just trying to tag on the back of that and go for the ride with them, really.
Oh, indeed, and a P2 in class in race number 1, but race number 2 by comparison, not as successful. Just take us through your race 2, because it looks so that you did get caught up in a bit of a bump and scrape early on in the race.
To be honest, Paul, like the races were so intense and being bunched up. It was a case of, I can't actually remember what happened in race 2. I think it was just one of those moments again where it was just trying to position the car better and then coming off unfortunate. So if I was on the inside, there was quicker paces on the outside. And because we were so bunched up, it was just a case of, if you're in the wrong place, you could get overtaken by 3 cars. And I think that was it in the end, really. I was quite happy I came out quite clean, considering it got quite bunched up. But it was some great racing all around, and I think it's been one of the better rounds for close racing. And like I say, I'm not a fan of this track, but as a result, with these results and the racing that happened tonight, I've just had heaps of fun.
Oh, indeed. And whilst you may not be able to remember all the specifics of race 2, I think one thing that will be very prominent in your mind, your rivalry with Alan McCain from iRacing Esports in race number 3. The two of you battling tooth and nail for P2 in class, or P9 overall, all the way to the end. There was contact. There were moments where I think it could have gone either way. That must have been thrilling.
Yeah, it was. I think we were side by side for half the lap. Some superb racing by Alan. And I think it was at the moment where, as I say, you try and keep measured, you try and pick your moments. But I knew Alan had the pace over me. I mean, he was gaining on me. I don't know whether he got held up in traffic, but I think he was the quicker guy on the night. And it was just about, if I wanted to hold that position, I had to send it. So going through half that race, I think I was on the inside, then I was on the outside. And I thought I finally got the move done, and then going into the final turn, I got tagged. I don't think it was intentional, but it's caught me. Luckily, managed to save it, and then Alan's gone by as a result. I think if it was me, I would have probably given that position back, just because, I unintentionally spun the other driver, but. Ultimately, we had some great racing, and yeah, I think that's probably the highlight of the night when we were going toe to toe around that lap there. But yeah, some great racing.
Oh, it's fantastic to hear your perspective on it. Great racing indeed. And of course, sets yourself up very nicely now for a Christmas break, which is well deserved. Just your quick reflections on where you are in the championship. You're one of the main competitors for the Prime Championship win in amongst Matthew Addy and also Daniel Holmer. And Holmer, of course, picking up 2 wins today, but then a dismal race number 3. Surely you've got to feel confident that it could be yours come the end of the season.
It's hard to say. I think this is it's one of the closest championships I've seen at the top before. At my level pro-am, I think it could go anyone's way. I think like Matthew Addy, he's had a great run. He's obviously got great pace. It's just not been his night. I think it was, I can't remember which round it was, Catalonia. Didn't have a great night that night. So just unfortunate with incidents and stuff. So once he comes to the fray and he gets a clean race, I think he's got to be right up there battling. But yeah, like I say, it's important just to enjoy it, keep your head down, and honestly, I don't think about the results too much. I think, as I think you said it in the last interview, just going the Turkington route, just keeping your head down, having fun, enjoying the race, trying not to overdrive, and be consistent. And you never know what could happen at the end of the championship. So yeah, it's all open. I didn't expect to be here, so to be in this position, it's really good. I'm really enjoying it. So I'm really looking forward to the next part, coming back from the Christmas break.
Well, indeed, I'm loving the mentality, and I have to quickly ask, you're going to Honda's own test circuit at Twin Ring Motegi in 2 weeks' time. How are you feeling for the Japanese circuit?
Never raced it, as Mikey in the last interview. It's still yet to buy it, and I think it should be more suited to the Honda. I don't think you could definitely feel the ballast in this race. I think the Elantras were on form, so yeah, it hopefully will suit the Honda more. But I've got to get some practice on it and see what sort of pace I have in there. But again, looking forward to it.
Oh, that's great to hear, and does sound as though a lot of the field may need to buy the circuit based on what yourself and also our previous interviews have had to say. But just before we do let you go, Reese, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out to or a thank you to this evening?
Absolutely. I want to thank you, obviously, banging commentary every week. And for NXTGEN, I think this is probably one of the better leagues that I've been in. Really well run, really well enjoying it, and just great bunch of races. I'd like to give a shout out to the teammates, Luke and Trev. They're constantly improving every week, and they just love getting out. And then say my girlfriend, she's got a lot of patience with me, spending a lot of time doing this racing, so I'll give a good shout out to her. And yeah, just everyone, Merry Christmas. Oh, and Ian Manners for that final race. He did brilliant, absolutely awesome position. So congratulations to him. Let's put him back in the fight, I think.
We may have indeed. We'll have to see what the tables say going into round number 5 in a couple of weeks. But Reese, with that, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you represent the Primes this evening. Thank you for joining us. Congratulations on the results, and well, we'll see you in a couple of weeks' time. But until then, we wish yourself, the team, and all the family a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Yeah, Merry Christmas. Thanks very much. Cheers.
Take care. So hearing there from Reese Watt from JW Motorsport, a very happy into his first half of the season in terms of his performances with what was a difficult race number 2, but a race 1 and a race 3 ready to remember. But then again, over the course of the entirety of the evening's racing, enjoying the battling, the hard-fought battling within the Prime class. And as he said there himself, some of the closest it's been in league racing he's participating in, some of the cleanest racing as well. It wasn't always 100% clean, and as we've seen in the pictures in the background whilst we've been interviewing tonight, there have been bumps and scrapes between drivers. But to be fair, it's not Martin Malice, it's touring car racing. You've got to expect the elbows out door-to-door action, but that's what we love it for, and indeed the NXTCC has delivered, and well, JW Motorsport enjoying a better run of results since their season opener. What really has been at the spearhead with regards to their performances, but a mention there, and indeed a right mention as well, to teammates of Reese Watt, which are Luke Jones and also Trevor Anderson, where their results are continuing to grow, and I wouldn't be surprised if we start to see some of their performances echo him and really push towards that top 5. Plenty to look forward to from JW Motorsport, and we'll come back to their story in 2 weeks' time at the Twin Ring Motegi circuit. But definitely Watt himself, one of the major contenders in this championship, and we'll have to wait to see how Manners, Holmer and Addy all play intact, because it really is a four-way fight at the moment, and with McCain as well doing so well tonight in the Elantra, could he be the 5th candidate for that Pro-Am Championship? It's all wide open, and it is going to be the gift that keeps on giving. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, those are all of our interviewees said and done for this evening. Our 4 at the door, and well, it's been a pleasure to interview. And you've heard from Reese Watt in the Pro-Am class for JW Motorsport, and previously Mikey Doble in the Pro class for NDA Honda Racing, plus his teammate Will Redford, the Pro driver for NDA Honda Racing. And then firstly, we spoke to Callum Regarton, the Pro privateer, who made his debut tonight with the triple set of wins. But those are our interviews, and it is now time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show and you want to know more about the Next Gen racing community, then why not check out either our official website, that's nextgenracing.co.uk, alternatively you can go to our Facebook group, that's facebook.com/groups/nextgenracing, where you can go to the heart and source of all the latest information regarding leagues, upcoming broadcasts and everything in between, interact with the admins and the community, speak to the drivers. Indeed, there's plenty going on and plenty to come in 2023 for Next Gen Racing. It has been a superb year, and we've still got more to come in the year ahead. And we'll, speaking of next time, ladies and gentlemen, next time we will be back after the Christmas break on Tuesday the 3rd of January 2023 for the continuation of the NXTCC Season 2 story. Round number 5 will be in Japan at Twin Ring Motegi. Our drivers will take on the domestic Japanese circuit that's not normally featured on international calendars, but it's still a thriller of a circuit, and you'll get to see why it's widely considered to be perhaps one of the most understated circuits on the international calendar. We'll be back then, but until then, thank you for tuning in with us. We wish you all a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And we do hope that you have a wonderful time off. If you are able to take time off over Christmas, then enjoy it with friends and family. If you find yourself working over Christmas, well, we do completely understand. Sometimes it's out of necessity, but at the same time, we hope you do find some time off all the same, and that you have a pleasant Christmas period, a wonderful winter break. And when we return in 2023, it will be engines back on, blazing hot, and the racing action will continue. And we have been Next Gen Racing. I've been your host and commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, but most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.